GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, a Thursday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Briscoe, Kyle Collier heading up till 2 o'clock. We've got you for the next 4 hours. A lot of stuff to get into and talk about today. I believe an eclectic show on the docket ahead of us over the next 4 hours. We will talk some Chiefs football, certainly. We'll talk some Royals baseball. We will get into a little college basketball along the way, college football along the way, a little soccer activity along the way as well, and we'll play some sports or leisure in the 1 o'clock hour. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us to be a part of the show. 913-912-4810. Text line to be a part of the show. We will talk with Matt Lane, KC Sports Network, KC Laboratory Podcast coming up in the 11 o'clock hour. Talk with him about this Chiefs team heading into the offseason. Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed, what wide receivers are out there, maybe the draft. They've already got the pre-order for the KC Sports Network draft guide. The Combine coming up next week. Field Yates talking about the deepest position in the draft is easily and by far the wide receiver position, which is certainly good news for the Chiefs. If we're talking about one of those positions of need, if they can address it there, we'll see. We'll talk a number of things with Matt Lane coming up in the 11 o'clock hour. Max Reaper, Royals Review, will be our guest coming up at noon. And the Royals get underway tomorrow with actual spring training games. You know, there's spring training games today. What is it, Dodgers, Padres? Maybe. I don't know. There's baseball today, and tomorrow the Royals will get underway with their first spring training game. And then March 28th when they open up the season against the Minnesota Twins. But we'll talk with Max Reaper about his thoughts on this team heading into some spring training games, where the optimism lies, where some of the questions might be. He's got his early pre-spring training game 26-man projection at Royals Review. We'll talk a little bit about that and why he feels certain ways about certain players and what this season may be. Max Reaper will be our guest from Royals Review coming up at noon, and then Sports or Leisure at 1 o'clock presented by Johnny's Tavern. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us today. Let's start with this. We'll get into the college football playoff, the 12-team playoff over the next 2 years, the 5+7, which is already set in stone for the next 2 years. But then the ADs or the conference commissioners, I should say, and the incoming Notre Dame AD, Pete Bavacqua, are meeting and had their meeting yesterday, trying to go over what the future of college football will be, whether that is a continual 12-team playoff, 5+7. Seems like the momentum is to go to 14 teams, maybe eventually 16. There was a little bit of discussion about an 18-team playoff in there.
Good. That's what we need.
Which will eventually go to 64 teams.
I'll say it. I think 68 is too many.
And then extend to 68 teams.
That's where I draw the line.
Look,
no first four.
Did we found out that 68 teams is fine in college basketball. Why can't it be fine in college football too?
I can't think of any practical reasons or general choice-based reasons that may benefit the sport to not continue expanding forever.
I see. But it
32-team playoff in the NFL next year. Let's do it. More playoff games for everybody.
Finally, the other teams in the AFC West can make the playoffs. It's about damn time. Raiders have the recipe to make the playoffs. Antonio Pierce finally has the recipe to make the playoffs. Expand it.
I think that's a cause the AFC West should pick up on for sure.
That's how you get in. Broncos, we're going to make the playoffs. How? We're going to expand it. We're going to expand the playoffs to 28 teams.
I like
and
that.
We're
I
gonna
like
fight.
still having four losers.
Yeah, I mean, you don't. And then of those four, there's a lottery to get the first pick.
I think that's great.
You don't just tank in the NFL. No. We're not going to let you tank in the NFL. That's not happening.
There's going to be a lottery, but the team that wins the conference championship game but loses the Super Bowl actually gets the number 1 overall pick. We're making it a
kind of a baseball
meritocracy thing? Of giving more reasons we can talk about the sport more into the offseason.
It's the tryhards. If you try hard, you get the better draft pick.
You have to incentivize winning and losing, Jason. I don't know what's so complicated about that.
I mean, come on, man. So the college football playoff we'll get into in just a little bit, but let's start with the Chiefs. The franchise tag window we know has been open for about 48 hours. I don't know that the Chiefs will use the franchise tag. I know they won't use it on Chris Jones. We know that Mike Evans won't be getting the franchise tag in Tampa Bay. That's upwards of $28 million to franchise tag him. I don't think they're going to pay him $28 million and franchise tag him, because if they did, then that would be the starting point. Same thing we're talking about with L'Jarius Sneed. Of his $19 million franchise tag, if you give him the franchise tag, then you've already said, here's the starting point of our negotiations of what you're going to get on an annual average value. It's going to be $19 million. So 57 over 3 years is what we would have to pay you if we're looking at a 3-year contract. Annual average value at least, because $19 million. The question I would have as we move forward, as we look at this and try to discuss and break down what the Chiefs will be doing, what the best path forward will be. I was thinking about it last night, and I'm going through and just looking at the defensive line, and Mike Dana being a guy who's going to be a free agent, and I think he'll be given an opportunity to go and sign somewhere else for a couple of years. I don't know that he'll get a couple-of-year deal in Kansas City. I think if the Chiefs bring him back, they have proven that they are giving bigger contracts to priority free agents or one-year deals to guys whose rookie contracts have expired. I think Mike Dana would be an incredibly high candidate to bring back to the Chiefs. The Chiefs, I don't believe, are looking at him and saying, well, he's a high-level candidate to bring back on a 2 or 3 year deal. He's a high-level candidate to be a Nick Allegretti or a DeMarcus Robinson, a guy that you bring back on a Derek Nottie, bring back on a 1-year deal after the rookie contract has expired. I don't think Mike Dana is going to get that, is going to only get that somewhere else. I think somebody's going to look at Mike Dana and say, this is a nice piece for our team. We'll give him a couple, 3 years. 3-year contract that's really 2 years. And I don't know that Mike Dana will be back with the team. I don't know that Derek Nottie will be back with the team. The different free agents on this defensive line, obviously the big one being Chris Jones, literally and figuratively. And so as I was thinking about it, and what actually sparked the conversation, sparked my mind last night in thinking about this, I would give you 50 guesses as to a current Chiefs player, active or practice squad, that got me thinking about this topic.
Okay, I'm going to start with Cornell Powell.
God dang it, no way!
Yes!
No way!
Yes!
How could you possibly get that right?
News, baby.
Exactly.
Cornell Powell, Chief for life.
No
Chief for life. If you wouldn't have said and practice squad, I don't think I would have gotten there, but first guess Cornell Powell.
No way!
I'm in your head! Anderson!
Get out of there!
I don't like it in here.
I'm going to start charging you rent, man.
Dark in here.
Eviction notice. There's nothing in here.
What's back there? It is
Hello?
echo.
Low. Just walking around like John Travolta in Pulp Fiction, just like there's nothing.
Just me and
What do I
Cornell
do?
Powell walk around in here like, how'd you get in here?
I don't know. Are you gonna see any time with the Chiefs this year? No, you no.
You got a better chance than I do, but
Spider-Man meme pointing
Yep.
back and
Hey.
forth to each other.
I can throw in passes in your head. We can just be in there. You can run routes for me.
Fine, I'll ask it this way. Then.
I don't know why that
Why
happened.
would Cornell Powell spark that in my mind?
Perhaps because his market wasn't necessarily worthy of testing, and he's in a good situation for him, despite not being on the active roster this year.
No, not at all.
Okay, very good.
Not at all.
Very good.
Somehow Cornell Powell.
So great. The biggest contribution Cornell Powell has already made in 2024, right here, this show.
Somehow he sparked in my mind of looking at
Late round draft pick.
No, looking at the priorities for the Chiefs and how they would set their priorities this offseason, or how I would set the priorities if I was Brett Veach in the front office.
Number one, lock up Cornell Powell.
That's exactly right. Why would you not? I don't care. Colin Powell. Get every Powell that you could possibly find. Katina Powell. Whatever Powell
I'm not a
you're looking
Powell's.
for. She was the ringleader of the Louisville dorm room thingy. back in the day.
You've got
Katina
one more
Powell.
Powell than I had.
That's right. To the third Powell.
There's a game out now called Powell World.
Is there?
It's called Powell World.
That's
It
fine.
was a reach.
No, that's fine.
It's like Pokemon with guns. I haven't played it, believe it or not.
Interesting.
A lot of controversy. More than Cornell Powell, maybe less than Colin Powell.
Yeah, probably.
Controversy
yes.
spectrum.
Yeah,
Somewhere in the
that's
middle.
right. Yeah, right. And until the Pokemon get into politics.
That's right. At that point,
Yes.
I mean, we're talking
Good
about
luck.
Pokemon's like right to bear arms, I guess, which
Good.
feels
Good
pretty
luck.
touchy.
How many Pokemon have arms, though?
Some of them have more than two.
See, there you go.
Don't tell Machamp he can't have all those arms.
I'm going to take your word for it.
You should.
So Cornell Powell's in the news last night in signing a contract with the Chiefs to return to the practice squad, let's be honest, this year. So it got me thinking as to how I would prioritize and looking at it from this perspective of how I would prioritize the spots that we're looking at as the biggest needs or the biggest questions this offseason. It would be the 3 spots. It would be, obviously, wide receiver was a big conversation all year long. And Mike Evans, if he doesn't return to Tampa Bay, Bet365 has the Chiefs as the leader in the clubhouse to sign Mike Evans. I wouldn't put money on that.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be too rich. 2 years, $50 million he may be looking for. I don't think the Chiefs are giving 2 years, $50 million to a player in his 30s that has had soft tissue injuries. I don't think they're going to be in that camp at all. He would do a lot for this offense.
I know, I can't.
He would take that 3 yards of a touchdown pass for Patrick. Game manager, the stat stuff for Patrick. He's stuffing all his touchdown stats and his Lombardi Trophy stats. Just stuffing Lombardi trophies. Stuffing them down his pants. You're not that big. That's the Lombardi Trophy down there. Is that a Lombardi Trophy? Or are you just happy to see me?
And which one's more impressive?
Yes.
Yes.
It is. And I'm happy to see you. I don't know why I'm talking like this, but I am. And I'm going to stop now.
Game manager.
Somehow that's other teams' fan bases that popped into my head is how they were talking about
I feel like that's.
not
I
sure.
think it's fair.
Most people in San Francisco sound like that.
Yeah, that we were doing San Francisco, Boston. I was doing Boston. You were doing San Francisco. How about that hair? Get her done.
Whatever reason.
Kyle Shanahan. I don't know.
Kai.
Brady's the GOAT.
Brady's the star.
I don't know what happened there either. We're off to a hell of a start today.
One heck of a start, and it's all because of Cornell Powell.
Kyle, good work so far.
Kyle, great stuff, man. Really, really well done.
Been a good energy today. I think it's having a non-bearded board op. I think has really freed us up.
And alliterations.
Love alliteration.
Non-bearded board op, buddy.
Kyle Collier, non-bearded board op, buddy. How about that?
Kyle Collier, cuz.
What about
He's in for Dylan. Adorable Dylan.
Adorable Dylan. With the apostrophe first.
That's exactly right. So, anyway, let's
Cornell
get to the
Powell.
Point. Let's get to the point. All right.
Sorry.
Cornell Powell's just thrown this whole show, thrown a wrench in this entire show. Around noon, we'll get to why Cornell Powell
I am on the edge of my seat.
Defensive line, cornerback, wide receiver. Those are the big 3, right? So I was thinking, like, okay, they signed Cornell Powell. My God. I mean, I know that he's not being re-signed to come back and be a part of the rotation for the wide receivers. But it's been the same conversation we've been having about who's going to step in at wide receiver, who's going to be the next guy, who's going to be there with Rashee Rice, who's going to start the season next year, going into training camp, who actually has a job. Rashee Rice. Who's actually on the team? Rashee Rice and Sky Moore. And Justin Watson has a 2-year contract. MVS maybe. Talked to Adam Teicher, said, I've been counting them as cutting MVS, but that's only because there's no way I'm paying him $14 million. Right. But with Frank Clark, they approached him, and Sammy Watkins, they approached him and said, we're going to cut you. This is what you're costing us against the cap anyway. We'll restructure the contract. We're going to give you this money, or we're cutting you, and you can go find it somewhere else. And Sammy Watkins returned. Frank Clark returned on that 1-year deal. I would guess if given the chance, MVS would return on that 1-year deal, $3 million with incentives that can get him up to 6, 7, or 8, or go out and test the free agent market. You know what? Hey, you've won a couple of Super Bowls, but your tape this year on the free agent market is going to be you dropping passes. That's what's going to be. That's the highlight. They're going to show the touchdown in the Super Bowl. Awesome. I believe I could have caught that. I believe Josh could have caught that. Kyle, not sure. Never seen him play.
I'm catching that.
Okay, great. See? There you go. I'm taking your word for it. Because all eyes were on Kelsey. I believe he would be smart to take that deal. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having MVS on the team at $3 or $4 million. I don't think there's anything. The only thing wrong with that would be as if the Chiefs look at it and go, okay, he's our guy. There we go. Got him. Got him. We got Rashee Rice. We got MVS back. Hell yeah. Let's roll. All right. Frank the Tank.
But if it's him instead of giving a free agent deal to Gabe Davis,
yeah,
I get it.
Then you're giving $9 million a year for Gabe Davis. You're sort of rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. You're not paying MVS $11 million annual average value. Well, now you're paying Gabe Davis that money. Okay, whatever. But they still have to go out and address that.
Yes.
So how I looked at it and said priority number 1, it's obvious I came to the conclusion of priority number 1 being Chris Jones. But priority number 2 ended up being wide receiver. And priority number 3, L'Jarius Sneed and the cornerback. And the reason is Cornell Powell, which I started looking at replacements and saying, if I'm ranking them by priority, who's the most likely person that can step in for somebody that's going to leave?
Yeah.
Chris Jones, there ain't a soul.
Literally not a dude on the roster.
Wide receiver, we talked about it all year. Somebody has to step in.
Yep.
Is Joshua Williams ready to step in and play? Joshua Williams is so much closer to stepping in and playing than any other person at the other positions are even in the neighborhood of doing that.
Completely agree.
That's how Cornell Powell got me to this topic.
Thank you, Cornell.
That's how Cornell Powell.
That's great work.
Just like, okay, Cornell Powell is a name, but it's like a name in the group of players that are also just named Sky Moore and MVS and Justin Watson and Kadarius Toney and Justin Ross and John Ross and any other, Ross Geller, any other Rosses out there, the Powells and the Rosses together, whoever. But with the Chiefs, because they've drafted, so they like Najee Johnson. I have no idea. Yeah. I'm not counting Najee Johnson.
Coming back
like
from an
him.
ACL too is tough.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure, they like him.
They liked him. Nick Jones, they liked him. Jalen Watson is a serviceable player. But out of that group of players, Joshua Williams seems like a guy that it's like, all right, this guy is playing some pretty good football. He's looked like he is a representative cornerback. And if he's your number 2 cornerback on your team, you could do a whole lot worse. Orlando Scandrick could be your number 2 cornerback, and we've seen that in this town, okay?
That's right.
So Joshua Williams is your number 2 cornerback, as opposed to, okay, well, if you prioritize L'Jarius Sneed and let Chris Jones go, okay, well, Joshua Williams playing his same role. Williams can't go play defensive tackle.
Right.
So defensive tackle is who?
Neil Farrell is like the guy on the roster. Keandre Coburn isn't here.
Turk
and Nadi were on 1-year deals. They still have to come back again.
Do you go and like if Chris Jones is demanding $30 million and Matabuki is saying I'm going to take the representative Quinnen Williams deal, is that a more sound strategy to go and sign a younger player that's going to be in the mid 20s? As opposed to Chris Jones in his 30s, a more dominant player, but Matabuki's pretty damn good. Is that the better strategy? Either way, to me, priority number 1 is the defensive line.
Yes,
for
I agree
me
with that.
this year. We saw that they won a Super Bowl with the wide receivers that they had, but in large part to the defense and how good it was. Address the defensive line, address the wide receiver, and I feel like you've got a pretty good start to the offseason. And if L'Jarius Sneed is a tag and trade or you have to let him walk because it's too expensive, then I will take my chances with Joshua Williams coming in and playing with Chris Jones on the defensive line and a wide receiver or 2 new faces at the wide receiver spot.
And it does all work together this way. It's kind of how I cheated the system a little bit for Fact or Fiction on Tuesday about biggest positional need, because I lumped the whole defensive line together. The receivers, it's a big need and a big concern, but Patrick Mahomes is throwing them the football. The cornerback room without L'Jarius Sneed, there is a void there. I got something for you on Joshua Williams too, but there is a void there. But with the depth and the fact that you have stability at safety, you have Justin Reed and you have hopefully Brian Cook fully healthy by camp, I'd hope, and hopefully Mike Edwards is back. But you have good circumstances there. Chris Jones is affecting more than just the defensive tackle depth chart. It's that entire defensive line. The only starting caliber defensive lineman currently on the roster who will be healthy to start in week 1 is George Karlaftis. And that's not a shot at anybody. Go look at the list. It's just empty right now because so much of that group was 1-year deals and young guys and developmental guys, processes for Felix or BJ Thompson. I'm putting Amenahu out of that group because I don't think he'll be healthy for week 1.
Right.
So all of that to me, absolutely, I am lockstep with you there. Something funny about Joshua Williams that I forget all the time. I had to double check to make sure it's true. And this isn't projecting the rest of his career, but from a pedigree perspective, how the Chiefs viewed him at the time perspective. He went 3 spots earlier than L'Jarius Sneed. L'Jarius Sneed went 138 in 2020. Joshua Williams went 135 in 2022. Jalen Watson and Najee Johnson and some of those other guys, Watson and not. God, what a 7th round. Jalen Watson, Isaiah Pacheco, Najee Johnson. Good work there, Veach. But those are 7th round picks, right? Those are we're taking flyers on guys we like. Joshua Williams, Fayetteville State, and the lankiest dude you're going to see on a football field, perhaps. They drafted him because there are tools there that they really liked. And again, man, that draft class is looking even crazier, even without Sky Moore being an impact player in any way so far, because Leo Chanel's had incredible playoffs. And now Joshua Williams, I think there's a really good chance he's starting next year. But Jalen Watson, at least for a chunk of their rookie years, he kind of jumped the line a little bit. Joshua Williams is the guy with the physical tools who they said if we can keep honing and honing and honing him. Now he's got 2 years with his coaching staff, plus whoever they draft next year, and maybe it is getting Nick Jones more into the rotation and a guy who's going into year 2 then. There is depth there now. There's quality there now. There's coaching there now. And I trust the scouts to replenish that group. None of I still wish the Chiefs would get rewarded for what they've done with L'Jarius Sneed. If they can't have him as a long-term player, I hope it is a tag and trade that benefits him with a huge deal and the Chiefs with a couple of picks, because that coaching and developmental process has been so tremendously impressive. He went from a safety kind of hybrid slot corner guy to being one of the most dominant outside corners in football this year. That's an amazing, amazing process. But we've seen this group do good work with other corners before, and I don't think there's a way to patchwork Chris Jones out of the picture. And I still lean towards saying, hey, figure it out with Chris Jones and then draft for your future. Go ahead and maybe it's a second-round pick this year on a defensive tackle who's not going to play a ton, or a guy who's going to be able to take a few snaps from Jones when he kicks outside. I am already comfortable with that if it is an accentuating Chris Jones plan and replacing him in 3 years, not replacing him in April. But man, this offseason is going to give us some really juicy stuff to talk about there, because I love those position groups. We all love this defense, and there are going to be some changes there this year.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. I want to talk about just looking at that positional group, and I want to compare it to when the Chiefs walked on Charvarius Ward and what they were looking at compared to what they're looking at right now, and the situation they're in because of the scouts and the drafting and development, as opposed to what we've been talking about as well. We'll get into the college football playoff. We'll talk about whether or not college coaches are leaving the college ranks for the NFL because of what's going on with NIL and transfer portal, et cetera. And we'll also talk about some parking issues with the KC Current. Matt Lane joins us at 11 o'clock. Max Reaper at noon. Sports or Leisure, 1 o'clock. More Zone next. All right, Jason Anderson here from my friends over at Guaranteed Foods. I've told you about them plenty, about what they've done for our family and what I believe they can do for you and your family. If you've got all the activities going on with the kids, even if you don't, and you're just looking for a home food service that can deliver in so many different ways, literally deliver the food, stock the Guaranteed Foods heavy-duty commercial food service center, organize everything, but also deliver in the promises and deliver in the way that they present their products. We worked with them and created a 180-day supply of food and an entire menu with over 600 restaurant-quality gourmet products to choose from, including 100% all-natural meats, fruits, and vegetables. Every single one of their products, 100% all-natural meats, fruits, and vegetables. It is not filled with what you'd see at the grocery store, with the artificial coloring, the preservatives, the tenderizers, the enhancers, all of that goes into making sure that that product is good to stay on the shelf. Guaranteed Foods does not do that because it's all buyback packaged, individual portions, which makes it great for cleanup and any leftovers, which there aren't because of individual portions there. The fridge is cleaner than it's ever been. It's not, just a bunch of junk and clusters in there because we've got all these leftovers and we forget what's in the particular storage containers. But it's all blast frozen at a chill index close to 100 degrees below zero. It prevents destruction of all of the different chemical makeup of that particular product, so it doesn't need all of the preservatives and everything that you would see at the grocery store. It's how they present it, how they prepare it, and it allows you to prepare it in ways that I've never known that I could do that. Making a steak from frozen, that sounded blasphemous to me. A waste of food and a waste of steak. But that's what we do now, and it comes out great. 913-888-5000 is the number for Guaranteed Foods. You can check them out online, guaranteedfoods.com, but better to give them a call, 913-888-5000. Set up the in-home consultation, see everything they can do for you. They'll walk you through the process, educate you on the process and the things that separate them from other home food services that are out there. It's Guaranteed Foods, 913-888-5000. Tell them you heard about it right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Guaranteed Foods, delivering all natural food to Midwestern families since 1958. Fenton, Chris Lamons, Mike Hughes, DiCaprio Bootle, and DeAndre Baker. Those were the cornerbacks. They let Charvarius Ward walk, and those were the cornerbacks they were there to choose from, and they didn't think McDuffie was going to be there. They were going to go into that regular season with that group to choose from, and then McDuffie fell in their lap, and it's like, oh, hey, how about this? You got Fenton, you got L'Jarius Sneed, hey, and now you got Trent McDuffie to step in. That's awesome. They end up trading Rashad Fenton.
Traded Fenton for very little later that year.
Because they felt pretty good about what they were getting in Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson. It's like, okay, wow, you can trade Rashad Fenton for, a brand new football pump,
A conditional 2023 seventh-round pick. I mean,
Did it conditionalize to a football pump?
I'm not sure if it conditionalized to anything.
Conditionalized to cash future consider. It conditionalized to in the future, will you answer the phone when we call you about a trade?
Did it conditionalize to Nick Jones? I'm on it.
I don't know. But now the at least the group being Williams, Sneed was in that group, so we throw in McDuffie. McDuffie, Williams, Watson. If Shamari Connor is going to be a guy that plays cornerback, plays the slot, plays some safety, plays some different roles there, sort of like what Sneed was doing before. It's like, all right, Sneed now has to be the main guy.
You got to have 5 DBs you're happy to put on the field.
Right.
Interestingly,
Absolutely.
the Chiefs were running more 3 safety stuff than 3 corner stuff late this year, which did mean more
true.
Shamari Connor, which I do
Very
not
true.
think there is a Connor Sneed 1-to-1 swap necessarily. But in terms of the personnel flexibility, the Chiefs are doing weird stuff to answer these questions, which is really exciting.
And they have more answers this go around than they did a couple of years when Charvarius Ward was cheaper.
Yep.
Charvarius Ward signed for what is a cheaper contract than L'Jarius Sneed will sign for. And they let Charvarius Ward walk.
Yep.
I do believe that a priority for the Chiefs is Chris Jones. And I do believe that a priority for the Chiefs is L'Jarius Sneed. I just believe their priority is much higher in Chris Jones. And I also believe L'Jarius Sneed is going to want the bag, and I think he's deserving of that. And I think if the Chiefs are really going to get into a long-term discussion with L'Jarius Sneed, it may start with the franchise tag. Mm-hmm. And if it starts with the franchise tag, now you are paying him top money to play the cornerback position when they haven't, whether that's circumstantial or not.
Right.
I think they can do that. We talked about some of the numbers yesterday as to how I think they can get away with Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed both being signed, and then 2 years later, you sign L'Jarius Sneed to a 3-year contract this offseason, which is a 2-year deal. You walk on year 3, and the money you were paying Sneed, you transfer that over to McDuffie, if that's the route you want to take.
And I think we both think that Sneed would be a corner they would be willing to buck the trend on of not paying a guy.
Because he's 27 years old.
They didn't ever spend significant draft capital on a corner until they did. They haven't paid a corner until eventually they will. If it's not him, I think it will be McDuffie at some point.
So, but the options are better this go around. If there was ever a time where you would say, well, we're going to walk on this cornerback and not pay that money when we've got issues elsewhere, it would be this one. Because going into that offseason, when Charvarius, I'd have to go back and look, did Charvarius Ward sign before Tyreek Hill was traded? Like
Good
Charvarius
question.
Ward went to the 49ers before so they went into that offseason looking at it and going, well, we've already got answers at wide receiver. Like, we don't need to address wide receiver. And we can still let the cornerback walk.
I've Googled Charvarius Ward signs 49ers, and Google has told me Taurus. That's his zodiac sign.
Well, that's good. Somebody's been looking up zodiac signs lately.
March 14th was the Ward deal, and
Tyreek Hill was like the 20th or something,
yeah,
right?
I think it was somewhere in there. I'm not going to search for his zodiac sign. March 23rd is the ESPN story there. So yeah,
9
about a
days
week
later.
before, yeah.
So they went in and let Charvarius Ward walk when they already had answers at wide receiver. And now they're going to spend a lot of money on L'Jarius Sneed when they have huge questions at wide receiver and better answers at the cornerback position than they did that particular offseason. Yeah. If we're looking at what they've done in the past to help us sort of figure out what this offseason is going to be. I don't know how much they're going to spend on Chris Jones. I don't know if Chris Jones is going to demand Aaron Donald money. I want to return him back next year. But the Chiefs have already offered him their best offer. If they were willing to go up, they would have done it last year. They're not willing to go up anymore. And it's probably less this go around. So if Chris Jones is serious about returning, then he will meet the Chiefs at their number. And if he meets the Chiefs at their number and they go and address the wide receiver spot and they slide Joshua Williams into that role, I think they become as good or a better team than Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed, and just trying to piece together a wide receiver here or there with Rashee Rice, and Joshua Williams plays the same role. Yeah. They are much better off, in my opinion, sliding Joshua Williams into that role and finding an actual wide receiver, but making sure that defensive line is at least taken care of with the big man in the middle that does so much for that. It's sort of like Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Who helped who? Was Kelce the straw that stirred the drink, or was it Tyreek Hill? Is Chris Jones or L'Jarius Sneed? Well, I don't think there's any doubt about this. It's Chris Jones. Like, L'Jarius Sneed helps with the second effort Karlaftis and the second effort in a Mike Dana and things like that if they're guarding for a long time. But it's not just Sneed. It's McDuffie and the other safeties out there and things like that. He helps those guys. Chris Jones helps everybody.
Even as a longtime Chris Jones evangelist, I would say would even be different if Amenahu was healthy, if Tershawn Wharton just had a career year, was on a longer term deal, if Neil Farrell had a breakout year and you saw the vision for him. Like, and basically what I'm saying is, if the defensive line looked more like the cornerback room, then the conversation does shift a little bit. I think in a vacuum, in just about any situation you want to put it in, Chris Jones is like one of the 5 most valuable defensive players in football. And I said top 5 just very casually because I didn't want to have to figure out if he's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. But he's one of the 5 most impactful defenders in football. And I don't know what he's going to look like in 4 years. I don't think the deal the Chiefs have to sign him to will be a deal that locks in guaranteed money for 4 years. The wrinkle this year, as opposed to what basically devolved into hostage negotiations last year. I'm not going to say who was holding Chris Jones hostage, but it wasn't the Chiefs. And 2 people were sitting next to him in the skybox that day. But I do wonder if this year, if the Chiefs approach is, hey, you know what? We did a lot of the effing legwork last year. Why don't you do it this year? You go ahead and you go talk to whoever you want to talk to, and you bring us the contract that they're willing to offer you today, and then we'll see where we're at. Because no one's going to give him 90 over 3. It's not going to happen. The $30 million AAV, I don't think it's coming from anywhere in the NFL at this point. And if he wants 30 and no one's going to give him 30, but the Lions would give him 28 and the Chiefs would give him 26, then make Chris Jones make that decision. And then if you're the Chiefs and he says, I'm not coming back for 26, I'll come back for 27, then I would say, all right, it's time for the Chiefs to blink there too. And those numbers aren't like super concrete for me at this point. We'll see where it goes. The process there, though, can be different this season as opposed to last year just being pulling teeth. This year, Chris Jones has no excuse to not go learn his own market. The Katz brothers have no excuse to not get every offer they can find, and then the Chiefs can say, all right, let's go ahead and speak in reality here, because they wanted a deal that 31 other teams also weren't going to give him last offseason.
I wouldn't hate if the Chiefs let Chris Jones walk and sign Madubuike. I wouldn't hate it. He's not the same player of Chris Jones. Chris Jones is, here's the thing. Our offense is looking at the Ravens defense and going, our entire offense revolves around where is Madubuike, as opposed to the Chiefs, where's 95?
Right.
Madubuike had more sacks this year, had 26 more tackles. He is a high-energy guy against the run. He's a high-energy guy in chasing down backside runs, which is where he got a lot of his tackles. He had 1 fewer tackle for loss than Chris Jones did this year. He's got more pass rushing moves than he's had in the past. But the question would be, we went from 5.5 sacks to 13. This is a career year, and he's going to cash in on a career year, and you're exchanging somebody who has played at a high level, Chris Jones, for a long time, for someone who had a career year. But you're also talking about a 30-year-old in Chris Jones and a 26-year-old in Madubuike.
Exactly.
So
you have to bet on the trajectory.
Yes.
That's what you're doing either way.
You've got 4 years of a younger player, and you're looking at probably $20 million less in guaranteed money over a 4-year deal. You're looking at Madubuike that probably signs for, mid-low 20s, 23, 24 million per year, where Chris Jones might be looking for 30. Chris Jones might be looking for $80 million guaranteed, and Madubuike might be looking for $60 million guaranteed.
What's the year? Madubuike is going to be looking for a longer deal as well, I would imagine. Chris Jones is going to want whatever he can get, but that's going to be limited a little bit. Madubuike can say, I want guaranteed money over a long period of time. I I would still rather take the short-term, more expensive investment of Chris Jones
Me too.
and then have that succession plan immediately there to follow.
Me too. I wouldn't if the choice was Matabuki, Snead, and a wide receiver, or Chris Jones and a wide receiver. I may be more inclined to say Matabuki and Snead.
It's at least a real conversation.
Yes, because again, you're talking about over 4 years, upwards of what could be $20 million guaranteed if Chris Jones is looking for a 4-year contract. If he's looking for a couple-of-year deal, I mean, the Chiefs were offering him a 2-year extension, so that would have been 3 years for Chris Jones under contract. So is he looking for a 2-year deal, or is he looking for another 3-year deal?
Right? I would give Chris Jones 3 this year, and note that third year is probably a little bit funny. That to me would be a great solution to this.
100%. I would totally be in favor of that. And if they went and said a 26-year-old will give a 4-year deal, with it being a real 3-year deal, then I'd be okay with that. But there's no questioning the more dominant player is Chris Jones. The more dominant player is number 95 for the Chiefs. I'd rather, if we're looking at all things being equal and money is not an option, give me number 95 on the field instead of Matabuki.
It's so hard to get the dominant players. There are a lot of really good players in the NFL. Getting the dominant game taker overer in fourth quarters of playoff games is such a hard thing to find and to keep on your team. And I understand the age. I understand the numbers. I really do. It's why you can probably hear the conflict in my voice. But I don't want Chris Jones to not be on this defense next year because I want him to three-peat, and I think the best chance of them three-peating is with Chris Jones in the middle of the defensive line.
Chris Jones, a wide receiver, and Wanya Morris at left tackle. Matabuki, a wide receiver, Tyron Smith at left tackle.
Now we're cooking.
Yeah, now you're like, okay, what do you do? Right? I mean,
so they let George Karlaftis be an answer as a rookie. You know, this depends about the guys. They let Karlaftis be an answer as a rookie. They did not let Felix be an answer as a rookie.
True.
There are levels to it.
Yep.
But man, if you can get Wanya Morris to be your value on the offensive line, and a pretty expensive offensive line at left guard and right tackle right now, and then guard and center eventually. I want that to work. I want the rookie contract guys to take these jobs, so then Chris Jones can keep his.
Yeah. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
You may not have caught it because, it's been football season pretty late in the year, but we are here again, my friends. The Big 12 tournament just around the corner, and my friends over at Tickets for Less are your go-to for one of Kansas City's best events. Whether you're looking for an all-set...
We did a Fact or Fiction with Todd Lebo, and Josh asked that, Fact or Fiction, I am ready for the Combine and the draft season to start after this year and the playoffs and the Super Bowl and everything. And we all said fiction because we didn't think he was ready the way that he sounded. And he said that was correct. It was fiction. He is not ready at this point for it to already start. This is like the week off. This is the week reprieve that you've got the Super Bowl. You talk about the Super Bowl. This week, you got sort of a week off. Next week, it is the Combine and on into draft season. And then we got the franchise tag deadline, and we've got then free agency. Like, this is the 1 week where you can just sort of take a deep breath. You can just sort of, not for you, but for a lot of other people.
Yeah, no, and I get it. The Combine, it would make a lot of sense if the Combine got moved back a little bit to help with the timing and everything for fans, not for teams. They obviously want it to be what it is, but this is what it is. It works out well for me. And then once we get past the draft, then it'll really settle in like, wow, the Chiefs just won, the first time to go back-to-back since the Patriots did it in the early 2000s. This rarely happens. This is going to be something that's crazy. And like, oh, hey, by the way, when they won, they immediately got up on the stage and were talking about going for 3. So now we get to spend all next year talking about what it would be like to be the first team, the first fan base to have a team three-peat. So there's a lot of excitement to come forward. It's just a little distraction in the way in the meantime.
After that 2019 Super Bowl, the Chiefs went on the Run It Back tour and brought everybody back, kept the band together, and they got back to the Super Bowl, so it wasn't a failure. They got back to the Super Bowl, and it also didn't cost them years down the road. They didn't sacrifice 5 years of success for that 1 year because, over the next 3 years, they lost in overtime in the AFC Championship game and won 2 Super Bowls. So they did not sacrifice those things. I bring that up because this offseason, they've talked about going for 3. They want a three-peat. They want to keep people together. Chris Jones at the parade said, I'm going to be back next year and the next year and the next year and the next year. Whether that was the liquor talking or not, I'm not sure. But he certainly was feeling himself and having some fun there with the vibes being high at that time during the parade. Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed, that has been a huge conversation that has taken place since they won the Super Bowl. How do you view and sort of break down these particular players? Priority 1, is it Chris Jones to you? Is it L'Jarius Sneed? If they can only sign one, how do you view that decision that Brett Veach and the front office and the staff and the coaches and the scouts have to make here, fairly soon in the next 4 weeks or so?
It's such a tricky conversation to have because I think there's clear pros to both of them. There's the cons for keeping either one of them are not particularly near as high, but there's rationale for why you would not be able to or not, it wouldn't be most advisable to bring back either one of the guys. So for me personally, I think I lean L'Jarius Sneed just because I think he's a couple years younger, but more than that, if you listen to any time Steve Spagnuolo talks, it kind of starts with what L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie do and how that allows them to do all the other stuff, all the blitzes, all the rotating coverages, disguising everything. He almost always starts with talking about it's because he's got these 2 corners that he can trust to line up in man coverage, to play zone, to blitz, to defend the run and be like force defenders when they don't have linebackers out there because they're mugging up on the line of scrimmage or blitzing. I just think if I look at the defense as a whole, having Sneed paired with McDuffie gives the entire defense, all 11 players, more. It helps them a little bit more, whereas obviously the impact of the singular player of Chris Jones is more than any other defensive player on the team, probably more than anyone besides Patrick Mahomes. His singular impact is higher, but I just think the defense probably has functioned as high as it did this year because of that secondary, and I think keeping that together while you continue to rebuild the defensive line might be the route I would go if they had to choose between the 2 of them.
And that's interesting because that's not the consensus view. So that is a different view of what most people have come to the conclusion. I'll ask you, if that's the case, if you go L'Jarius Sneed there, what do you do at defensive tackle? How do you attack that? How do you fill that, what will be a very large void in Chris Jones, considering it doesn't feel like there's anybody there to step in right now and to fill that void, so you don't have, you're not just taking Chris Jones off the field and not doing anything to replace that?
Yeah, that's the trick, is then if you don't keep L'Jarius Sneed, you do have players that are ready to step in. I don't think they're close to the same level, so you're going to have a step back. Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams have been great, and maybe Najee Johnson comes back from injury and is exceptional as well. But when you kind of look at how the Chiefs use those guys or speak about them, it really is L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie that help the secondary go. So while they have guys, I don't know if they're up to allowing the rest of the defense to play the way they do. Whereas if you look at Chris Jones, the Chiefs don't have anybody to step in if they don't keep him. So if he does hit free agency, they obviously have to go add some players, multiple players, guys at that position, whether it's an early draft pick and a solid, especially like in the early rounds, the first 2 days of the NFL draft. There's some quality defensive tackles that could probably step in and make their impact felt pretty early on, especially as pass rushers. Or if you go look at the free agency market, there's a handful of defensive tackles that are hitting the market this year that are going to also be expensive. It's not like you'd be saving a ton of money, but you got Justin Matabuke, you got Christian Wilkins, you got there's a couple other guys. Javon Kinlaw I know hasn't been good, but like there's some names out there of talented players that you could come in, bring them in. So if they don't keep Chris Jones, you're going to have to spend money. You're going to have to spend draft capital, but you are getting a little bit younger. You're going to save money that you're going to spend on other positions like tackle or wide receiver because they think that Chris Jones would obviously be more expensive, the most expensive person you would sign this offseason. Reallocating that money to other positions to make the overall team stronger. It's kind of what they did with Tyreek Hill a couple years ago, and I think we all agree that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, my issue was, and I landed on Chris Jones over L'Jarius Sneed, understanding that the money is going to be more expensive for Chris Jones. I would also wonder how serious he is, Matt, about wanting to return to the Chiefs, because if he is that serious, he's going to have to meet the Chiefs at their number, not the Chiefs coming up, because the best contract offer he was going to get that he got last year, and he turned it down. That is not going to be on the table this year because he's a year older. So the Chiefs are not going to offer the same amount of money to Chris Jones. And if he turned it down last year, why would he then accept it this year unless he looks at it and goes, well, I maybe have a better understanding of the market out there as a free agent. But I think as a true total free agent, no franchise tag, no nothing like that, I think he would be able to bring in top coin, maybe not Aaron Donald money, but close to it. So we'll see what his decision is, how important it is to return to the Chiefs if he were to meet the Chiefs at their number. I view it as, with the questions around who is there and available to step in right now for Chris Jones, and not having that, and understanding what you talked about with some defensive tackles. I'd mentioned Matabuke, him being one of those, Christian Wilkins, and there's a couple of others out there. DJ Reader is available as well, but he's almost 30 years old too. But Matabuke would be the one that would make sense as a 26-year-old. But I just feel like Joshua Williams is more ready to step in and fill that role, to where if you were to allocate money elsewhere, do you allocate L'Jarius Sneed's money elsewhere as opposed to Chris Jones? And Joshua Williams is closer to being ready to step in at that spot than taking the Chris Jones money and allocating it elsewhere, but then you're going to have to allocate a decent amount and even draft picks to the defensive line, where with Joshua Williams, I don't think it's a major pressing need to say, all right, without L'Jarius Sneed, you better go address cornerback right now. That's the reason I land on Chris Jones as opposed to L'Jarius Sneed. I'd love to have them both back. That would be fantastic, and then go address some needs in the draft. But am I too high on Joshua Williams? Or if the Chiefs decide that Chris Jones is the priority and L'Jarius Sneed, they can't make it fit, is Joshua Williams ready to step in and at least play at a high enough level to where, we're not talking about Orlando Scandrick or Rashad Fenton having to play cornerback?
Yeah, it's a balancing act. It's like I fully see the path to why Chris Jones makes more sense for that exact reason. Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, they're still splitting reps right now, and I don't think the Chiefs are ready to make the decision on who's above the other at this point. So, they're still splitting reps. So they do have guys that are functional NFL players that, lower end starting level cornerbacks. They're not Orlando Scandrick level. They are clearly better than that. But they also aren't. If you put Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams out there along with Trent McDuffie in this Chiefs secondary, do you now feel comfortable blitzing, as often as they did? Do you now feel comfortable with all those coverage rotations? Because now all of a sudden you have two guys that, if we go back to just last year's training camp, Steve Spagnuolo, Dave Merritt, all these guys talked about how they were waiting for either one of them to take that step, and they kind of said it hadn't happened yet. So I just think if you lose Sneed, I think the exotic nature of Steve Spagnuolo's defense probably takes a step back. And yes, you have Chris Jones. Yes, you have this single-player game wrecker. But I think you lose a little bit of the Steve Spagnuolo mastermind aspect. So I think for me, more than saying it's Sneed over Chris Jones, it's saying I want whatever lets Steve Spagnuolo do all of his mad scientist stuff the most. And I personally come down to that being L'Jarius Sneed, allowing him to get into all those blitzes. Now, the path that you talked about, let's say they get a good deal with Chris Jones. They can't get something worked out with Sneed, and they have this corner room that they currently have, I think they're fine going into next year. They don't need an early investment. You probably don't have to pay an exceptional amount of money to bring in a corner. You might want to add some depth, but they've done a really good job at drafting defensive backs over the Brett Veach's tenure. They got Najee Johnson, who I think they had really high hopes for last year before his ACL injury, so he's coming back. They drafted Nick Jones. Like, they have a bunch of guys that they could go into camp with and see if somebody steps up and can play to 75% of L'Jarius Sneed's level. And then as the year goes on, as that continuity grows, you have another playoff push of the Steve Spagnuolo defense. This past year was the anomaly, right? That was the year we got Steve Spagnuolo playoff defense from week 1 all the way through the Super Bowl. Most years it takes them 10, 12 weeks to really find their footing. So I think if the hope would be those young corners that are having to step up and replace Sneed have the first half of the year to get to that level and it can ramp up. I just think I might lean on, with the way the offense looks, trying to let Steve Spagnuolo be as comfortable as possible. And he seems to really like the coverage flexibility he has with the 2 elite corners rather than just one of them.
Matt Lane is our guest, KCSN, KC Laboratory Podcast. If they don't bring back Chris Jones, does it make it to where they go into the draft as sort of a priority, a whole, and we're forced to go and draft this spot? I mean, I think. Look, I would highly doubt Byron Murphy would be anywhere near where they would be able to draft him. That's not happening. Maybe Jerzon Newton, they can, trade up and maybe take him. But I think the impact of a Chris Jones sort of works against the Chiefs, and a Jalen Carter, what he did last year for the Eagles, works against the Chiefs, because I think teams would look at it and go, look what these guys are doing on the interior defensive line. You can't just go out and find those guys on the street corner somewhere, in practice squads. These guys are rare players. So when there's one available, you better take them, and you don't let them slide past, the top 20. Does it create a hole to where the Chiefs feel like a desperation to go and fill that spot if they don't have Chris Jones on this team?
They definitely have to add somebody, right? And so I would imagine, just looking at Brett Veach's history, if they were to lose Chris Jones, they would definitely sign some level of defensive tackle in free agency to where they would have the bodies that if they had to play a game on draft day, that they would be ready to go. So, they would not be walking into the draft with the current defensive tackle room. We had mentioned some guys, Madubuike, Wilkins earlier, Leonard Williams is up, Danico Autry, Fletcher Cox. There's players out there that were starting last year, that were impactful players for their team. So if they don't keep Chris Jones, if he does hit free agency and signs with another team, I do think they sign at least 1, if not 2, guys with starting experience at the defensive tackle position. So as you said, when draft night comes, they don't feel pressed to have to find a way to get a Byron Murphy, to have to trade up for a Jerzon Newton or whatever it may be. They try traditionally to stay really far away from, we need to draft somebody to field, a starting roster. They try to get those guys some guys under contract before. Now, that doesn't mean that they still can't draft the defensive tackle early, even if they sign somebody that we've mentioned. But they like to have that ready, so that way they have that flexibility come draft time.
Visiting with Matt Lane, KCSN, KC Laboratory Podcast. Mike Evans has been talked about a lot around here, and even throughout the season, of whether or not he would be somebody that would sign with the Chiefs, and it looks like Tampa Bay wants to re-sign him. He wants to return to Tampa Bay. They aren't going to franchise tag him. It's going to be like $28 million to franchise tag Mike Evans. There's been talk of him looking for a 2-year, $50 million contract, which I think prices him out of Kansas City. Is he somebody that the Chiefs should be in the market for if it means spending that money, or should they be shopping in the, I don't want to say secondary market to where you're looking at a Darnell Mooney or something like that, but a Hollywood Brown type player, as opposed to paying $50 million over 2 years for somebody in his 30s like Mike Evans? Or would he be worth it for the Chiefs to go out and do that? How do you view maybe him specifically, but also what the wide receiver market may look like for the money that they may be willing to spend on that?
I think he's going to be at a price point that doesn't make a lot of sense for the Chiefs, especially when you consider his age and everything and the type of receiver he is. I don't think Mike Evans is just a contested catch guy. He's a full all-around wide receiver that definitely wins more vertically and with his size than he does, pure route running or speed or anything like that. So, I don't even know if the fit is perfect for Kansas City, but on top of that, he's going to be so high up there in terms of how much money he's going to get paid per year, and it's going to be a short-term deal, so you have to dole that cash out relatively quickly. I just don't foresee that happening. If the Chiefs are going to spend that much money on a wide receiver, and we won't know if he's going to hit, actual free agency or not. Somebody like Michael Pittman Jr. would make a lot more sense for Brett Veach's kind of history of signing guys that are younger and to a little bit longer deal and that probably fit in the offense a little bit more. But even still, with him, T. Higgins you can add in here, Calvin Ridley it sounds like is going to not be re-signed before at least free agency starts. I think all those guys are going to probably price themselves out of what Kansas City is going to look to spend on the wide receiver position, given they just won back-to-back Super Bowls with largely but paying as little attention to the position as what is a team can and still have success. Like they added as few dollar amounts to that position as they could, as few proven players to that position as they could, and it worked. So I doubt you see them really open up the pocketbook to get a wide receiver. So looking at Hollywood Brown, Darnell Mooney, even a little bit lower, just somebody that has reliable like a KJ Osborne. Kendrick Bourne's coming back from an ACL injury, but he was playing really good before that. Like I expect them to play a little bit closer to the $10 to $12 million range than really compete at the top end, and then we'll see what happens when the draft rolls around. Just like D-tackle, they want extra bodies on the field at wide receiver before the draft starts. That won't deter them from drafting more guys. They just want to have enough guys under contract that they feel like they can play a game with if the season had to start early.
Yeah, if they go out and, if you're looking at what, market value would be, like a Darnell Mooney for like $9 million market value right now. Hollywood Brown would be, 2 years, 24, 3 years, 36, so about $12 million per. I mean, if I can spend $21 million and bring in Marquise Brown and Darnell Mooney to add to Rashee Rice, and if I, just, throwing some names out there, but I was going to mention and maybe restructure MVS. Do you think that's a possibility? MVS, they can save about $12 million on the cap if they were to release him. Instead of a $14 million cap hit, they take a $2 million dead cap hit to move on from him. But would it be smart, because he's a guy who can add value to a team. He just isn't worth $14 million. He's not worth $11, $12 million to be on a team. I've brought up a couple players in the past, a Frank Clark and a Sammy Watkins, where the Chiefs went to him and said, we're going to cut you. This is what our dead cap hit is. Would you be willing to restructure your deal, take a lot less money, and stay here? And we'll put some incentives in the contract. I think they'll do that with MVS. I don't think they'll just outright cut him and say, good luck, thanks for the last couple of years. And I think it would be smart for MVS to then say, yeah, I'll take the 1 year, $3 million with incentives that may get up to $8 million or something like that. And most of them would be not likely to be earned, Matt, since, he had such a rough year this year. Would that be the route that you would take if you're the Chiefs, of not just moving on from MVS, but if you were to, drop his number down to like $3 million and then add a wide receiver or two? I'm throwing names out there, so this is not, something that may even be realistic. But if your wide receivers next year, you go in with Hollywood Brown, Darnell Mooney, Rashee Rice, and MVS, I feel a whole lot better, and you're not spending $30 million for one guy.
I think theoretically, the idea with MVS theoretically makes sense for them. It's just he's had such a tumultuous path with the Chiefs right now that it's hard to understand where his mindset is, where the team's mindset is. Do they want him back even at a reduced price, or are they just ready to turn that page and get somebody? Obviously, it ended on a very high note with MVS, right? But that's why you don't necessarily have head coaches or other players making these decisions. You have people that have essentially been trained to be more objective about it. How is the feeling in that front office? But people who do running the numbers, above the field level, how do they feel about MVS coming back, whether it is, at a reduced price or not? And doing so, I would assume if you're extending him but kind of moving the money around, you're locking yourself into him for a little bit longer, making it more difficult to get out of his contract, right away or in the future. Is that what they want to do, or do they just want fresh faces? Do they just want new guys in there to turn it over? So I think the plan is definitely going to be to add, at least one, if not two veteran guys heading into the draft. And I still think they are going to be very interested in adding, a top 100 pick at the wide receiver position. I doubt they come out of these first 2 days without that. So I'm feeling good about what the pathway can look like for the wide receiver group. It's just a matter of what they're going to do. And so there will be veterans. I think there will be young guys. What gets a little tricky for them is if you look at their wide receiver depth chart, it's not good, but there's a lot of names. There's a lot of guys that are on the team, under contract, that you have to make kind of hard decisions to add. If you want to add 3 wide receivers, you're going to have to be essentially riding off a Justin Ross. You're going to have to be cutting a Sky Moore, cutting a Kadarius Toney, guys that are already kind of having money allotted to them. Not that it's a big cut or anything like that, but is the team ready to move on from that many guys in one season as well? So I don't know if there's enough space to add 3 to 4 new faces, but you might be able to add 2, maybe squeak in a third if you make the hard cut to cut MVS, maybe a Kadarius Toney or Sky Morgo. Like, they got some decisions to make at the wide receiver position, and it's a matter of here and I guess a couple weeks once free agency starts, we'll really start to get an idea of what they're doing, because I don't think they'll spend Hollywood Brown level contract, just using names. I don't know if they will spend the money on Hollywood Brown and still look to add a first-round wide receiver, but if they, I don't know, let's say sign a Darnell Mooney a little bit less, or just a veteran like a KJ Osborne, they might be looking a little bit harder into the draft. It's all about allocating your resources. So I think they'll add wide receivers. I just don't think they will do the offensive line level rebuild where all the resources go to that position group, if that makes sense.
The draft guide is there at KCSN that you can pre-order right now as the Combine's coming up next week, and we'll get a lot more answers and where guys will be moving up and down the draft boards, and this is a deep position, wide receiver position in the draft. In your mind, with the Chiefs sitting at 32 and 64 with their first 2 draft picks. So, they don't have the plethora of picks like they had a couple of years ago when they were able to kill the draft in what they did, and they capitalized on those draft picks that they had. Is it more worth it to you for the Chiefs to package some picks that they don't really have a lot of, by the way, so limiting the lottery tickets, limiting the chances of getting a Joshua Williams or a L'Jarius Sneed or a Trey Smith or something like that, and go and get a Troy Franklin or a Brian Thomas Jr. or something like that? Or you're sitting there at 32 and somebody calls and you slide back and say, all right, we'll go back into the late 30s, pick up a 3rd or 4th rounder and take, a Mitchell from Texas or Keon Coleman from Florida State or Burton or Worthy, some of these guys that might be early second to mid-second round draft picks as wide receiver. What would be a better strategy in your mind for the Chiefs as you've obviously the draft is your baby and you're looking at it? Is it worth spending picks to go up and get somebody like a Brian Thomas Jr. Or a Troy Franklin as opposed to a lesser player, but in this year's draft is better than maybe some other players that would be drafted at that spot?
Yeah, so for me, and this is just thinking wide receivers here right now, right?
Specific wide receiver, that's it.
A lot of other positions, yeah, that can be considered. Like for me, normally I'm a bigger fan of, especially in the first round, of trading up for guys that are different. So like the Trent McDuffie trade to me is like the pinnacle of that. Like, yes, the Chiefs used a lot of capital to go get Trent McDuffie, but at no point, in no way, shape, or form can you convince me that the team would be better off using all those picks. And you can even pick and choose the best selections at all those spots left, and I still don't think the team overall impact would be as good. So I am normally team trade up when a guy is different. The problem is I think this wide receiver class in particular, the first 3 guys, your Marvin Harrison, Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, those guys are all different. After that, though, I think the next 5, 6, 7 wide receivers, I have them, the order of them that I prefer, but I don't know if there's huge gaps between, that wide receiver 4 and almost wide receiver 10 in this draft class. They all have very different skill sets, but very good skill sets. It's a very strong wide receiver group in that range to me. So given the Chiefs' lack of capital, I think this year I would be team trade back 10 spots and, be willing to take an Xavier Worthy, for example, instead of going to get your Brian Thomas Jr. It's different body types, but they're going to serve the same purpose. They're both out there to take the top off of, the defense. And they would both, I think, be great in Kansas City. But if the difference is trading up to pick 20 to get Brian Thomas Jr. or getting to trade back and collect another day 2 pick to get Xavier Worthy, I would probably lean that route given how little draft capital the Chiefs have. And just like I said, I don't see a huge separation from those wide receivers from 4 to about wide receiver 10 in this class.
We'll let you go on this one. If you're guessing right now, what positional group would you look at as the most likely that the Chiefs select if they're sitting there in the first round?
I think their first pick, I think, is going to be a tackle or a wide receiver. I think it's going to be on the offensive side. I haven't decided which one I want to narrow it down to just yet. That's going to be so board and free agency dependent. But I think it's an offensive pick, and I would heavily lean towards either a left tackle or a wide receiver. And at this point, since no moves have been made, I'm going to say wide receiver, but I'm leaving myself a little backdoor out of that to offensive tackle.
100%. The draft guide, you can pre-order it right now at KC Sports Network. The Combine coming up next week. Matt, you're the man as always. Matt Lane, KC Laboratory Podcast, KCSN. Appreciate it as always joining us, man, and looking forward to our conversations already continuing to look at some of these draft picks and the moves in free agency.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. Go Chiefs, but now it's draft time. So let's go.
Heck yeah. Matt Lane is now living his best life. He is living his best life with the draft and Combine coming up next week, and the draft guide is already able to pre-order there. It is a fantastic reference if you are, I don't know, if you like the draft, which turns out people do. People enjoy the draft, and I am a huge, huge, huge fan, as people may have known by now over the years, of the roster construction, of how to put the roster together, where you're allocating resources. It's so fascinating. It's, you know what? It's the fantasy football bleeding over into real football, obviously with bigger questions and bigger details that go along with it. But it's if you play an auction league as opposed to a snake, you've got the money to spend. You've got to allocate it certain places. This is what, how your league puts to the rules and the points and everything. And I love it with the NFL and how the Chiefs go about it. Because if it's $25 million for Mike Evans, or you're paying $12 million for Hollywood and $8 million for Darnell Mooney, and even if you say we're going to restructure MVS for $3 million, now you're looking at $23 million for Mooney, Hollywood, and MVS being the fourth receiver at that point. It's like, MVS and what he's done with this team and being a part of, I don't know, there's some bad feelings there. Yeah, because he was like one of the main options for this team. But if he slides back to number 4, and you've got Rice and Hollywood to take the top off the defense, and Mooney, especially you go into the draft going, we don't have to go and trade up. Or maybe they look at it and say, we're going to spend a little bit of money on wide receiver, but there's so many good wide receivers in the draft. Maybe we spend money on Tyron Smith at tackle so we don't have to take somebody like that, or we spend the money elsewhere. Just, it's going to be fascinating to see. But I think one of the themes moving forward will be, boy, the wide receiver class is deep. Boy, the wide receiver class is deep. We've talked about that. When does the bubble burst on wide receivers? Because if so many good wide receivers are coming into the league, at some point you go, well, I'm not going to pay $30 million for this guy when I can pay $18 for this guy, or I can draft this guy in the second round because he's pretty damn good. He's not the guy that 2017, the Buffalo Bills trade back with the Chiefs and get a third rounder and a first rounder the next year. And they take that third rounder and they package it with another pick, and they move up in the second round to get Zay Jones in the second round. These guys in the draft that are second rounds and maybe third rounds are all better than Zay Jones, and they had to move up to get that guy. That's what's going on in the NFL now with 7-on-7, with the spread offense in high school and college, and guys that used to be your best athlete, we put him at quarterback. Now, you want to play wide receiver? Great. Because we're developing quarterbacks throughout the world as well in flag football and 7-on-7. So now you're getting much better, more refined, and higher level wide receiver play going into college and coming out of college into the NFL. And I think you're going to see more and more of drafts like this where you just go, boy, the wide receiver class is stacked, because we're looking at it through the lens of how we used to view the wide receiver class. And I think this is going to be more and more of what we see, which makes it less and less where you'll spend $50 million over 2 years for Mike Evans, and where you may see 10 years ago a guy like Hollywood Brown might have gone for more money than what the projected market value of $12 million would be. And guess what? MVS was 11, a few years ago. So we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. incentives that could get you a decent amount of money.
Yeah, sure.
Or you can go and test the free agent market.
Right.
But you're going to get more than $4 million on a 1-year deal. Who's going to give you a multi-year deal?
And also, where does he want to be? Like, when you are talking about wide receivers in particular, if you think you have a chance to get paid somewhere else, spending another year with Patrick Mahomes is not a bad bet. But also, MVS might say, yeah, you can give me a nice little deal here. If the Chiefs do cut him, he can probably at least try to get a 2-year deal somewhere else. And if that's more stable to him, that's fine. You made the point earlier, though. His 2023 tape is not going to get him the money he wants in 2024.
No.
There's some amount of like buying into a bounce back, and if you regress under Andy Reid with Patrick Mahomes and with a group of receivers who could not catch a football this year, not a great sales pitch.
Tex with a really great point that I hadn't even thought about. I'm just, I've mentioned Darnell Mooney's name a couple of times, and maybe he signs with the Chiefs, maybe he goes somewhere else. Maybe the Chiefs want him, maybe they don't. Said Mooney with the Nagy connection. I hadn't even thought about that.
Is that good or bad?
I think it's good. Darnell Mooney with Matt Nagy had in his 2 years 1,600 yards and 8 touchdowns.
Okay,
in
all
those
right,
2
good.
years
So
with Nagy.
yeah.
Since then, he's had 800 yards and 3 touchdowns.
And did Nagy drafted him, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Nagy drafted him, and he had a 1,000-yard season with Matt Nagy in year number 2. 81 receptions, 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns.
That feels like that was 15 years ago.
Yeah, that was 2021.
That's crazy.
And I have so many visions of, and I didn't have him on my fantasy team, so this was not a, lamenting that. Yes. I have so many visions of watching, for whatever reason, a Bears game and seeing Darnell Mooney being overthrown by Justin Fields or underthrown. It's like, oh, he was open. Oh, he just missed Darnell Mooney. Oh, he was there. It's like, I think MVS's free agent tape will be unfortunate for him. I think Mooney's tape will not match the production of his ability to get open and just not have a high-frequency passing attack and a player who is as accurate as Patrick Mahomes will be and how he would be used in this offense. And it's a great point on the Matt Nagy, because Matt Nagy, as the offensive coordinator, got 80 receptions and 1,000 yards out of Darnell Mooney in Nagy's last year.
Catching passes was that still Trubisky, or was that a little Trubisky platoon situation?
That was Fields' first year.
Oh, oh God, you're right.
Yeah, that was Fields and Andy Dalton that were
Andy Dalton. Okay, I felt like there was a vet in the mix there that I couldn't place. So Fields and Andy Dalton.
Fields and Andy Dalton in that spot.
I think that, like I was referring to earlier, of maybe not necessarily bargain shopping, but your value shopping in all of this.
Yeah, for sure. You're value shopping.
I think finding value in Darnell Mooney is a really interesting one.
Not to come in and be your number one receiver.
Right.
Come in and be a guy that, okay, Rashee Rice may be your number one, or maybe you go and sign somebody that's your number one. Or you don't have a true number one, and you've got Rice and Hollywood and Mooney and a draft pick and Justin Watson and Sky Moore that are there. And you're like, all right, you got like 6 guys there that are okay, and because you go into this season and it's like the only person that you look at and go has a spot on this roster, I would say as a wide receiver, would be Rashee Rice. Sky Moore can earn. I'm not cutting Sky Moore. He can earn a spot. Like he can earn a starting spot or, one of the 6 if he goes out there and performs and actually performs. And it's not just he was a second-round draft pick. Therefore, he is going to be written in as this returning guy. I mean, last year at this time, they were talking about, well, maybe not at this time, but last year in the offseason, they were talking about Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney. Sky Moore is going to take a step forward, and Kadarius Toney might be a number 1 wide receiver. Well, we ain't going down that route.
Right.
That ship has sailed. They've done that, been there, done that, got burned. Okay? Not happening. So now you go in there with a legitimate, realistic view, and maybe they were just trying to explain it away to themselves. No, we've got confidence that Kadarius Toney he could be a number 1 guy. Sky Moore's taking that step forward because they couldn't afford to go out and add at that point.
I think they had to believe. I know they were hamstrung by the Jones deal and not being able to go pick up DeAndre Hopkins or whatever. But I think the process of that offseason, I think they had to believe that themselves to some extent because Rashee Rice ended up being the number 1 receiver this year, and I think that was a pleasant surprise for them. I think they bought the Sky Moore Kadarius Toney combo at least to some extent.
I don't think there's any way they went in because when we heard about Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore was OTAs and minicamp. I don't think there's any chance, especially when we've heard about MVS and learning and trying to pick things up. There's no way they went into that and going, there's our number 1 guy. We're winning a Super Bowl because that guy, we're going to get him the ball. He's going to catch it. He's going to get yards after the catch. He's
going to be consistent. We're going to hit him 4 times, 5 times a game.
Yeah.
It's not.
He's going to be the leader in yards after catch for a rookie since in the last few years. Maybe. I don't know.
I feel like that came up somewhere. Certainly, it was the best rookie season for the Chiefs, for a Chiefs receiver since Bo, right? But yeah,
but yards
just
after catch,
Yak specifically,
Yak
I think
in the
is right.
postseason, I think he broke the Yak record for rookies since 2018. It's not really a record, but going back to 2018, rookies in the postseason, he broke Jamar Chase's yards after catch the most this year. He did not catch Jamar Chase in receiving yards for a rookie in the postseason
That makes
overall.
sense. Right.
Because Jamar Chase was amazing when they went to the Super Bowl with the Bengals playing 4 games. Rashee Rice got 4 games as well, but he did not break that record. But yards after catch specifically, he was the Yak merchant for this team. He was awesome. But that's specifically for a rookie.
Right.
Because he doesn't even own the yards after catch record for one postseason in Chiefs history.
Is that a Tyreek Hill
That's
record?
Jerick McKinnon in yards after catch for one postseason.
That's Jerick McKinnon?
Mm-hmm. A couple of years ago.
God, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he did it, but that's the record. Like that. No, that. I mean,
it's only a few yards. Rashee Rice was just a few yards away from breaking that. Rashee Rice is number 2 in that. I was reading the game book.
It's a little sports or leisure, little vroom vroom. Yeah, I can hear that.
Might be a little sports or leisure. Maybe remember those for the 1 o'clock hour.
Very
I don't know.
good.
Maybe that'll be there.
If you're listening
maybe it
right
won't.
now, free hint. Got to stick around for an hour 20.
I'll tell you this: one of those is part of sports or leisure. One of them is not.
Excellent.
One of them just random that I remembered in reading those things. But there's no way in the middle of the summer they thought Rashee Rice is our number 1 guy. We're going to win a Super Bowl because we're going to be able to say, "Hey, 4, be ready for the football."
Right.
In the overtime drive. When mic'd up, Patrick Mahomes is like, 4, be ready for the football on 3rd down and 6.
If you would have said that this time last year, you would have been like, is Chad Henne unretiring and what?
Why is he throwing? Henne was ready for the football.
Henne-
It's a 99-yard drive.
Is he taking the snap and throwing the football next year?
He was ready against the Jags. He was ready for the football. He stepped right in. 99-yarder, baby.
It's also funny to hear Matt say last segment, like, if the Chiefs are making these moves, maybe they move on from Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney. Like, maybe they make one of those guys a roster spot. But and boy howdy, do not hear me be like, no, just receiver by committee. Do what you did last year. Run it back, baby. That's not where I'm at in any way whatsoever.
No.
It's not really where I was at this time last year, if we're being frank. But they did end up having that roster crunch at wide receiver at the end of training camp this year. And if you are talking about how much the top of the roster there improves, the guys who don't make the team, if they do really invest in multiple guys in free agency and in the draft at receiver, it's going to look very, very different. I think right now I'd rather have Mecole Hardman than Kadarius Toney, but Mecole Hardman's hitting free agency again, and Kadarius Toney has a $2.5 million guaranteed salary that's all dead money if you cut him before the year. I'm not saying that $2.5 million prevents you from having a change at that very important receiver spot, but I do think Sky Moore is on the team, and I think he will end up with the roster spot, and I think he will mostly earn it. I think it'll be a little bit on reputation and pedigree and the investment and all of that, but it's going to be, I know we're now months and months ahead, but however the receiver group ends up shaking out is going to end up being fascinating at the top and at the bottom.
Yeah, they're not going into this year saying Sky Moore's a starter.
Right.
Sky Moore can be on the team.
Right.
But if he's on the team, he ain't starting. Like, he's going to be lower down the totem pole. Sorry.
And can he do the things that he wasn't able to do last year? Because it wasn't just like he got hurt and didn't reach his potential. He was out there early in the season a lot and not hitting his spots.
Yeah, and not getting the ball thrown to him, not getting targets. He's out there a lot and not getting targeted. Mm-hmm. So there's a reason for that. Mm-hmm. Rashee Rice was getting targeted a lot. Hell, Richie James was getting target share when he was in the game over a Sky Moore. So yeah, they've got some big questions. They've got some big decisions to make, and they've got some options out there. I mean, that's the thing at wide receiver. This is not a scarce market to where you're going, good God, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? No, they got options in the draft. They got options at the free agent market. They got options that are going to be of value and not just having to break the bank to bring that player in, not to where you are sort of desperate and you trade Tyreek Hill and go, well, let's sign MVS then because he's out there. We need somebody to be fast. So that means we've got to give him a 3-year deal. Then we're going to have to give him a 3-year deal for $33 million. It's just what it's going to be. In year 3, we're going to have to pay him $14 million against the cap because we're trading Tyreek Hill, and we need somebody to go out there and take the top off the defense. We're in a little bit of a desperation mode. They're not in that. They go in this with eyes wide open. into this offseason. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back and continue rolling. More Zone next.
You know, we're talking about off-season plans and what's the best way to use that off-season money, and maybe your salary cap space is a question. Well, let me tell you that it is no off-season over at Greenlight Dispensary, but we got some real value for you over at Greenlight. It's Flower Power Month at Greenlight Dispensary, which means they have amazing deals on eighths all month long. You can go to greenlightdispensary.com to see all their great deals throughout Flower Power Month. That includes deals on a lot of Greenlight's flower and the vendor of the week every week in February, highlighting their deals of the month. It means other individual brands, individual vendors coming out and showing, hey, here's what we've got and why you got a special deal each week throughout this month. It's almost over, but you still have got a full week to enjoy Flower Power Month. Again, that's at greenlightdispensary.com, and then you can either just go make that decision and browse for yourself at any of the 4 KC area Greenlight Dispensary locations, or you can order online, which is how you know what you're going to see in stock. Go ahead and lock in your deals there, and then order online, and then just go pick up your order at the drive-through or grab-and-go window, depending on which of the Greenlight locations you go to. Every purchase you make at any Greenlight location earns you points in your rewards wallet that can be redeemed for products in store, and the bud tenders at Greenlight are there to answer any and all of your questions about the products they have. It's really a great customer service experience. It's a great product. Everything along the entire process at Greenlight Dispensary is just the best of the best, and it's even more exciting here in Flower Power Month. So go check them out online at greenlightdispensary.com. That's greenlightdispensary.com.
coming up in April, and the KC Current have let their season ticket holders know that there are a couple of lots that are available, and the premium parking for those particular lots that's open to season ticket holders is going to be, after taxes and fees, $68 to park. Now, we talk about cars that can go 0 to 60. Their parking went from 0 to 68 overnight. And there is a lot of sticker shock that goes along with that. There's a couple of issues with this. One is it does reinforce the need for more public transit around Kansas City.
Yeah, the biggest shock of this for me was that the nearest streetcar stop is a mile from the new stadium.
A mile away.
Why is that?
In 2025, it's supposed to then be at the new stadium, but for 1 year, you're finding different options as to where to park.
Yeah.
I do think in the future there will be parking on the north side of the river, and you will be able to take a ferry over the river and be able to dock and let people off right there. I don't know how expensive that parking will be and things like that, but I think there will be other options as they move forward. But right now, the options are limited in terms of parking around the stadium. There's the ride, park and ride. They've got those things that are there. It's a difficult sell right off the bat because it is leaving a sour taste in some people's mouths to go and pay $68 to go and park at KC Current games. If the only way to go to the game was $68, then that would severely limit. My kids have only gone to Current games. We haven't gone to a sporting game, actually. We've been in town almost 5 years, 4.5 years, and we've gone to multiple Current games. We've never actually gone to a sporting game. Just circumstance, not that, it's like, well, no, we refuse to go to sporting. It's just that happens to be the case. So we're looking forward to going downtown and watching the Current at the new stadium. That's awesome. And there are other ways to go and be around downtown and park. But $68 for the season ticket holder is tough. My initial takeaway, Josh, was this is the part of sort of people complaining on both ends.
Yeah.
The Royals can build their own stadium. They're billionaires. Clark Hunt and the Chiefs, they can build and renovate their own stadium. They're billionaires. Sick and tired of us supplementing their money with our tax dollars. Okay. Well, the Longs just went and built their own stadium with their own money. Yeah. Well, why are they charging that much for parking then? Yeah. This is ridiculous that they're charging us for parking. Okay. Do you want to pay for it that way? Or do you want the percentage cents on sales tax to help pay for it that way? Now, the project is not done. There'll be more parking and things around it. And again, the streetcar will go down there. But I think this is part of it. If the Royals built their own stadium downtown and charged $150 for parking, people would complain. Wow, you're gouging us for parking. Okay, but your 3/4 cent sales tax is not going in to effect. They're building their own stadium.
Even the sticker shock of it is one thing. The other thing I imagine that the Current is probably not thrilled with themselves for is that the fact that season ticket holders are finding this out now, where it wasn't a part of the deal at the time. Sign up for season tickets or season tickets plus, call it premium parking, because that my read on it originally was like they are charging a lot of money for the most premium parking spots, and we know that parking and everything there is going to be a little bit of a challenge. Again, that's for me when I got to nearest streetcar stop is still a mile away from there right now.
Yeah.
That is punishing people who aren't going to necessarily buy season tickets or your best seats, and the people you want to fill out your stadium and to have that passionate fan base. And from the ownership side of it all, I mean, first of all, the Chiefs and Royals have been price gouging for parking for a million years anyway, so they've been doing both.
What's the premium parking to park near the Royals Stadium and Kaufman?
Or
Kaufman and the Arrowhead.
I literally would not know. I would have no way of knowing. I think getting in the gate is like $40 to $60,
$40 to park in Lot J.
Yes, exactly. So
at Kaufman.
I understand the frustration absolutely for getting that email and going, wait, that's not what I was budgeting there. I think that, as you were kind of alluding to, the next best thing is to make more of the city more accessible, which is something that should not be as big of an issue in the heart of downtown that the Royals are projecting, because there is parking around there and there's a little more infrastructure. I think this is an infrastructure issue as much as it's a current issue or a parking issue.
And I think when the project is completely done, there'll probably be some more parking. But if the streetcar were there were other public transit that was easier, something like that. And I do think they're going to have that access on the north side of the river. I think that will be a part of the plan overall. and it'll be easier to get there. It's sticker shock right now, but we can't complain that you supplement some teams and then you don't supplement teams and then they get their money back some other way.
The Zone is presented by Guaranteed Foods, delivering all natural food to Midwestern families since 1958. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
came through in big moments. I mean, if you look at his postseason stats overall, they're not super impressive, but how many big clutch moments do we remember from him? He had a big triple in the wild card game off the wall that ended up becoming the game-tying run in the 12th inning against the A's. He had that bloop single in the Astros series that ended up winning Game 2. He had that single in Game 6 of the series against the Blue Jays in 2015 that scores Lorenzo Cain for the game-winning run. And then, of course, his mad, crazy dash home against the Mets that really sealed the deal in Game 5 with that iconic picture of all the Mets fans horrified behind him as he crosses home plate. Certainly, some of those are some of the most memorable moments. And I actually asked fans, is that the most iconic moment in franchise history? And I think there's a case to be made that it is. And he was really one of the straws that stirred the drink for the Royals in those years. And so I think we'll remember him very fondly for that time. And certainly I think he can look back at his career and be very proud of what he accomplished in Kansas City because he gave us so many terrific moments.
He's a player to me that, we argue the stats, the sabermetrics versus the scout's view, right? The gut feeling, the numbers and kind of aligning those. Can you marry those two sort of principles and views and ideologies in building a baseball team? And he's a guy that, those postseason stats, he batted, under 260 batting average in the postseason, but he has all those RBIs. I mean, just as many RBI. I think one of the numbers was something like Lou Gehrig, where the amount of RBIs that he has with the minimal amount of games that he's played. Some rare company that he's there mixed in with. He is, to me, a guy that when you say the straw that stirs the drink, he's sort of that face, the energy of that ball club. He wasn't the best player on the team, right? He wasn't the guy that everybody feared, but I think without Hosmer on the team and somebody else in his place that had some of the same sort of characteristics, the same sort of ability and talent defensively and at the plate, I don't know that the Royals win it. There was something about Eric Hosmer that brought out other guys, and to me, that's where there's a little bit of the scout's view, the Atlanta Braves way, right, versus the Moneyball way of that it factor for Eric Hosmer. He just had the it factor. He walked around and felt like he was the best player on the team, best player on the field, and then others kind of followed that sort of swagger and that charisma. I remember him as sort of the face of that team. Was he the best player? No, I think that was Lorenzo Cain. But the it factor, the guy that sort of made everybody else go, that's how I'll remember Eric Hosmer, besides his pretty face.
Yeah, he was a handsome guy, that's for sure. No, I agree, totally agree. Stats are great for on a 162-game season where you have large sample sizes and you can make, you can point out certain trends. Over a 7-game series, it's going to come down to things like intangibles and, rising to the occasion and personality and leadership, like you mentioned. And for those things, I think Hosmer was the guy for the occasion. And, it's interesting. He's going to retire and start a podcast, and he had their first episode. And I would recommend fans check it out. He's got some great stories about Salvi in the minors and some other guys you may have forgotten about in the Royals minor league. But he talks a lot about, preparation for athletes and kind of the mental preparation and psyching yourself up and kind of the, what you need to do to rise to those occasions. And certainly he's a great authority to speak on that as a guy that gave us so many great moments in the postseason.
Visiting with Max Reaper here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. You mentioned a guy, and as you were talking about some of the players and excitement of this year in Vinny Pasquantino, and there certainly is a hope that, he returns to the guy that he was in 2022 and maybe even beyond, since he said, he feels as healthy as he's ever been. And what he was doing last year in 61 games with one arm, apparently, there at the plate. What's a reasonable expectation for Vinny Pasquantino? I worry fans might get out over their skis of what they feel Vinny could do. I mean, he was OPSing in the 800s, so, that's pretty damn good anyway. But what do you think reasonably should we expect from Vinny Pasquantino coming back from that surgery?
I don't want to temper those expectations.
Good. Don't.
I know, Royals fans, I know we have a love-hate relationship with, analytic projections, but the ZiPS projection system, which I hold a lot of stock in, it isn't perfect, but just looking at his kind of overall numbers and his career trajectory, they have him as one of the top 25 hitters in the American League. A guy that has his kind of metrics where he's getting on base, when he hits the ball hard. That's going to do very well. He's not a guy that strikes out a lot. I think that he has a chance to really explode this year. If that elbow is healthy, and looking at the video footage of him on Twitter, he looks pretty. He's hitting the ball with authority. That elbow looks pretty good to me. So I'm pretty excited to see what he can do. And we're talking about Hosmer being that guy with swagger and a leader, and the straw that stirs the drink. And for this team, it's Vinny Pasquantino, right? He's a guy that just attracts guys, that just seems to have the it factor where he knows what to say, he knows how to get guys up, he knows how to get guys to work together. And so I think he's going to be really important for this team to kind of hold these younger guys together. I know Bobby is the star, but he's kind of more of a lead by example kind of guy, at least right now in his career. I think Vinny's going to be that guy that really leads them on the field. And if they do take a big jump this year, I think he's going to have a big part to do with it, not just with his bat, but also with his leadership.
I've never met him off the field. I don't know him from Adam, right? But he seems like a guy that, while Hosmer might have been the guy that rallies everybody and gets everybody on a common task, on a common goal, and gets that swagger to the team that Hosmer sort of felt like he brought, Vinny feels like his personality is he'll be keeping everybody loose. That if things are getting sort of tight, that he might be the guy that sort of loosens everybody up and lets them go out there and play more free baseball.
Yeah, I hope he has he can start a Kelsey-like podcast somewhere. He's got a career in comedy down the road. But yeah, he's a guy that has a great sense of humor, keeps guys loose, and I think when they do have those, they're going to have some tough stretches this summer. I mean, they're a young team that still, like I said, is coming off 106 losses. So there'll be some moments in July where they go through like an 8-game losing streak, and it's going to be up to guys like him to kind of keep these guys loose. Hey, remind them, hey, you're good baseball players. Let's not get too, down in the dumps about this. And you need a guy like that, right? Because every team goes through those rough patches, and you need someone to pull you out of that.
Max Reaper is our guest. What gets you more excited for this year? The starting staff and the overhaul of what this may be with obviously Cole Ragans, if he continues what he did last year, and it looks like a dominant pitcher, and Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha just simply going out there and being professional pitchers each and every night. If Brady Singer can bounce back, what gets you more excited? The starting staff and sort of rebuilding there, or what J.J. Picolin and the front office have put together in the bullpen?
Yeah, I think just having a competent bullpen, it's going to be so nice to have. Like, we haven't had that since the days of HDH, really. And it's like a warm blanket that just makes you feel better when you have any kind of lead going into the seventh inning. I mean, like the past couple of years, I felt like no lead was safe, that things could blow up at any point. And this isn't going to be HDH. This isn't, Wade Davis circa 2014 out there. But this is a solid bullpen that's going to be able to protect some leads. And I think that just is going to give a lot more comfort to Royals fans. So, and the other thing is, I think by having those veteran relievers back there, that's going to allow some of these younger bullpen arms to develop. Like, there's a series of relievers I'm looking at: Carlos Hernandez, Steven Cruz, John McMillan, Will Klein. I think in the past, all four of those guys would have made this team, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, Carlos Hernandez is our closer." Now, with by having Will Smith, Chris Stratton, Nick Anderson, John Schreiber, they can kind of let those guys develop a little bit, make them earn it. We don't have to watch these guys struggle in April, all of April, throwing strikes. If Carlos Hernandez makes the team and struggles initially, maybe he gets optioned out. Maybe we see Will Klein get brought up. There's going to be a little bit of revolving, but that's kind of a good thing. You want that kind of depth. You want guys to have to earn it, to really slam the door open for their opportunities. So I think there's some upside there with the bullpen, not just with the veterans they brought in, but some of these guys that can throw 100 miles per hour and making them earn a roster spot by throwing strikes.
It's interesting when you bring up those guys, Cruz, Hernandez, McMillan, and Will Klein. Is there room for two of those guys, or are there four guys battling for maybe one spot, and then, as you said, the others sort of fill in depth? If Hernandez makes the squad out of camp and he starts to struggle, then you go and get a McMillan or a Cruz or a Klein, whoever. Is there room for two of those guys, assuming health, if everybody stays healthy and everything, as we project it right now, do you think?
Yeah, I think there's probably two or three spots in the bullpen, at the back of the bullpen, that are kind of being jockeying for this spring. And it also depends if they take Matt Sauer, the Rule 5 draft pick from the Yankees, which we'll have to see how he performs. And, I think by having those veterans in the bullpen, that makes it a little easier to keep a guy like Sauer, because you can probably get away with having 7 relievers and not having to rely on all 8, because those 7 relievers aren't getting their brains beat in every night, and you're having to trot out every single arm in your bullpen to avoid guys getting burnt out. So there may be a higher chance of keeping Sauer, and we'll have to see how he does in the spring. But I think in the past couple of years, about half of the Rule 5 draft pick pitchers have made the team initially.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the odds there are pretty good for Sauer making the team. As far as those other guys, though, it probably depends on if there's another lefty in the bullpen. So Will Smith will be one of the lefties in the bullpen, but he's probably going to be a ninth inning guy. I don't know if they're going to want someone else that throws from the left side to pitch earlier than that. So you'd have Jake Brentz and Josh Taylor in that mix, both coming back from injury. So I don't know if they're going to be 100% by the start of the season. They'll probably want to take it a little bit slow with those guys, and they do have options remaining. So we may not see them initially. And then I'm also keeping an eye on Anthony Veneziano, who is kind of an older for a prospect. Certainly not a top prospect guy, but he's a guy that's performed in Omaha as a starter. I think transitioning to the bullpen could be a good career move for him, and he could be kind of maybe a dark horse to make the team. And then there's a veteran named Sam Long, who they brought in as a minor league free agent, pitched a little bit with the A's. He's a minor league free agent, so he's got to kind of work his way onto the roster, but he's also an option from the left side as well. So there's some jockeying there at the end of the bullpen, but it's nice to have that competition and not have to give guys spots because you don't have any other options.
Max Reaper is our guest from Royals Review. Again, all of these questions are sort of assuming health, but is the starting rotation set, or is that fifth spot up for grabs if Jordan Lyles struggles, and can Daniel Lynch or Alec Marsh or somebody like that make the squad out of spring training?
Yeah, I feel like there are 8.5 million reasons why Jordan Lyles will be given the fifth roster spot.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that also makes a little bit of sense. I mean, like the other guys that would be options would be Daniel Lynch, who's coming back from an injury, plagued season. Alec Marsh, who certainly wasn't. I liked what I saw from him at times, but he has a problem with the long ball a little bit. Had some trouble throwing strikes. So it's not like there's someone that really is just demanding that fifth spot. And we'll see in the spring. Maybe someone looks really great. But I don't think it's a terrible thing if Lyles starts the year in the rotation. They let him, have April, maybe May to see if, he can improve upon last year's performance. And if he doesn't, well, Daniel Lynch is ready to step in. Chris Bubich is an option later in the year. So Alec Marsh, certainly an option as well. So I think Lyles is making this team as a fifth starter. Sorry, Royals fans. But the leash is a little shorter than I think, a past Royals team would allow because they have that starting pitching depth. And like I said, they want guys to earn spots. Like J.J. Picollo has talked a lot about using options as a way to extend the roster so that we can have this inventory of pitchers. And if one guy is not performing, well, we can just swap him out for someone else. So I don't think this is going to be a situation where they just stick with Lyles for 34 starts and 40-odd ball home runs because they have other options, I think, down the road.
Visiting with Max Reaper from Royals Review. Is there a player or two that you're looking at and watching in spring training and maybe keeping a closer eye on to see what they can do if they can shake up the roster construction?
Shaking up the roster construction, I think the roster is fairly set. I think the one, question mark I would have is like if Michael Massey kind of struggles in spring. They did bring in Adam Frazier, and he is a veteran who has a lot of experience and is a pretty solid defender up until last year at second base. So if Massey struggles and he does have that option year, and maybe they say, look, Michael, we like your bat. You got some good power. Let's work on, being a little more consistent, working the count. Why don't you go to AAA, work on some things. We'll have Frazier begin the year at second base. That could be an option, I think, if Massey kind of stumbles a little bit. So that could throw things up a little bit. I think there's a bench spot to be won there. I think Garrett Hampson will be on the bench. Adam Frazier, if he doesn't start at second, will be on the bench. Freddie Fermin will be the backup catcher. But then you're looking at another outfielder who can play center, which will probably be between Drew Waters and Dairon Blanco. And then that's another situation where I think they say to Waters maybe, hey, work on your game in Omaha. You've got an option here. We can bring you up, at any point this year if someone gets hurt and you can step in and be the starter, but we want you to get regular ABs. Blanco is an older guy whose speed can be an asset in games. but we don't mind him sitting the bench 6 days a week and starting him, infrequently. So there are some roster spots out there, but overall, I think this roster is fairly set. So that's kind of a nice thing for the Royals after years of like open tryouts in spring training. So it'll be nice to have a little more consistency and certainty.
Max Reaper is our guest from Royals Review. And as you started talking about the outfield a little bit, it reminded me when, John Sherman, J.J. Picollo, when they were having their press conference and they were talking about what this evaluation season was and the main things they wanted to see. And, they specifically talked about wanting to see if Bobby Witt can play and stick at shortstop, and that has been a resounding yes. But then the other player that they said by name that they wanted to see, and it was a big part of the season, was if Kyle Isbell can play center field, which put to rest any questions of whether or not their center fielder is Kyle Isbell, because he proved that he can play center field. If the bat comes around, then that certainly is better. What did you make of when you heard at that point that Kyle Isbell was a big part of the evaluation year for this Royals organization moving forward?
Yeah, I think Kyle Isbell gets very underappreciated by the fan base. I hear a lot of slander because of that. Is underwhelming. I understand that. But he is a tremendous defender, I think, both by the metrics and by the eye test. You watch him out there on a day-to-day basis, and he's getting to balls that a lot of guys aren't getting to, which is huge for a team that plays in Kauffman Stadium. So I think he is a tremendous player out there. If you look at the metrics, overall value, he was the best outfielder they had last year and projects to be their best outfielder this year, which maybe says a little bit something about their outfield too. But, I think when you have these young players, we also have to realize that what they did last year is a data point, but it's not set in concrete. That's going to be their numbers this year. Like, these players are young, they're developing, they have a chance to improve, they have a chance to sometimes improve quite dramatically. So a guy like Kyle Isbell, who certainly hasn't hit the big league level, but he's gotten about 100 plate appearances so far in his career. He's a guy that did hit in the minors. He showed an ability to get on base and hit for a little bit of power. So I do think there's some offensive potential there, and he doesn't have to be great or anything. I don't think he even has to be league average with the bat. If he's just close to league average and plays that tremendous defense, you're talking about a 2 to 3 wins above replacement player, which is hugely valuable for a young guy in center field. So I think it's he's certainly, I think, a key player to watch for this year if he can improve with the bat. I think a guy like Maikel Garcia, who also is kind of a similar player in the infield in that he provides great defense, and the bat hasn't developed quite yet. But he certainly had his moments last year. But if he's a guy that can kind of put the on-base numbers, hit in the minors, perhaps develop a little bit of power. Doesn't have to be much power, but just enough to make him a threat. I think he's a tremendous asset at the top of the lineup who can provide great defense for you. So a couple of guys there that I think have a chance to significantly improve this year, and if they can, they're going to be highly valuable players for this lineup.
Max Reaper is our guest, Royals Review. All right, last one for you. Projecting today, February 22nd, 5 weeks before they open the season. How many wins for this Royals organization this year?
So I'm still a little skeptical just because it's such a big jump from 56 wins to, a winning record. And it's, they play in the show me state, so show me, a little bit. But, they're a 75-win team, I think, right now, which, look, if you're a 75-win team and some things go right, maybe Kyle Isbell and Maikel Garcia are better than you thought, or MJ Melendez becomes a star, or the ball bounces right for you, or maybe the Twins were worse than you thought. That's, with some luck, you're an 82, 83 win team that maybe adds a piece in the summer that maybe pushes you into a postseason contention. So it's not crazy to think about at this point. But if I had to put a number on it right now, I would say 75 wins, which, like I said, could be competitive in the Central.
I'll take it right now, honestly, knowing what the last 6-7 years have been like. Max Reaper, Royals Review. Max, you're the man. Really appreciate the time. Great stuff there. Go there and check out all the work from Max talking about we didn't even talk about Quick Trip being a part of the Royals this year. QT there. As long as can they bring some of the QT stuff to the K? All right, that's what they need to do. Bring the QTs. They're already bringing the patch. You need to bring some of the taquitos and egg rolls and things like that from Quick Trip. Then we're good. We got it all.
They need to put one in the stadium. That's
exactly.
The new stadium, I guess, at the very least.
Absolutely, yes, no doubt. Max, you're the man. Really appreciate the time, sir. Enjoy the baseball starting today and then Royals tomorrow, and we'll catch up down the line. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, there's Max Reaper, Royals Review. Go check out his stuff online at Royals Review. He's got his projection for the opening roster on March 28th against the Minnesota Twins to start the season. That 26-man roster, he's got a projection before these spring training games even start coming up on Friday, coming up tomorrow for the Royals. A little afternoon baseball to get their spring training schedule started. We will take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling sports or leisure coming up at 1 o'clock. More Zone next. playing in Major League Baseball from that 2015 team. But, talking with Max there, just the difference of the analytics squad and the scouts squad, marrying the two, obviously you need both. But, looking at some of the postseason numbers, like the guy batted, 257 in the postseason, but he has all those RBIs in the games. And he always seems to be intricately involved in some of the biggest moments of the postseason for the Royals in that World Series run. Whether it be against the Blue Jays, the bloop single, whether it be the single down the right field line that Kane scores from first, whether it be just in general his play at first base or the mad dash by Hosmer in Game 5 against the Mets. All of these different parts of that team. And we look back and it's like, okay, the analytics may not support, Hosmer, but and maybe it does. I don't know. I haven't done a deep dive on it. But to me, it's like, there are parts of it where I think the analytics squad recognizes that there are some players sort of with it that have a big impact on the team. And I think Hosmer makes up that sort of player, that criteria of, man, he just had the it factor. Like his swagger sort of changed the way that team may have gone about looking at themselves. Is, him around town, him nationally, but him as a player and just his personality sort of got everybody rallied around as like, no, we are pretty badass. No, let's do. He wasn't meek. He didn't shy away. Like he felt like he was the lifeline of that team. Lorenzo Cain, the best player, right? You had other guys that played their roles, but the player that sort of brought it all together and just the swagger seemed to be Hosmer. And I'll remember Hosmer as sort of the face of that, besides just a pretty face, but the face of that team, because it felt like he was the one that was the leader of the pack, and he was the leader of the geese that are flying, and then everybody else was in that V formation behind him.
And we can all figure out how we want to do legacy talk, because sometimes I think using some of the advanced metrics is kind of fun because it helps put guys in different contexts. But also sometimes, even as an analytics friendly person myself, sometimes it feels like it's just there to like try to make you remember, to change your memories for the worse. To be like, well, he wasn't actually that good. Look at his efficiency numbers. Like, well, what I remember is, and for Eric Hosmer, and this is true for Hosmer and Kane and Moose and Salvi and the bullpen. There are lots of guys the Kansas City Royals without.
Yeah,
he's in that spot,
and he might be the first one you talk about in that era of the Royals. You might immediately go to Hosmer.
I think ultimately, Salvi is going to be like the soul of this era of Royals baseball, because you're really talking about a longer period of time and him being there sort of before, during, and after, if you will. And Hosmer was before and during, and Moose was before and during, Kane before and during, the real height of it all. But that, to me, I think if you don't remember the highlights over the box scores, I feel like you're kind of doing it wrong. And I love the ways of understanding the sport better. And when you're talking about, do you extend this guy or do you pursue a contract extension, whatever, that's something in the moment when those numbers are all really important. And it's why I feel like a hater every time I talk about Nick Bolton, because I'm like, hey, listen, I think I want you to remember Nick Bolton's Super Bowl touchdown. Right now, I want you to remember like the deficiencies before they give him, $15 million a year or whatever. When we're talking about guys at this point announcing their retirement and then making you remember the good times, man, remember the good times. If you saw Haas out on the town at some point, you remember what that was like before we had Patrick Mahomes, before the Chiefs were worth hanging your hat on. That was a huge thing for this city.
It's a great point. How far we have come as a city.
Yeah.
That being mobbed by kids and women around town was, oh my God, Hosmer's there.
Yeah.
Dude, Hosmer's there. And now we got Patrick Mahomes that can't go out in public, that has to rent out places to have, birthday, like rent out the whole place to have like the family there. And you've got TMZ that's stationed in town because they're going to see the most famous boyfriend in the world, even though he's the best that ever played his position.
Yep.
Patriots fans.
Yep.
And you've got them wanting to see the girlfriend of the best tight end that ever lived in Taylor Swift, who's in town, and private plane landing and people following the private planes. Like, Hosmer was awesome, and that was fun, and they brought a World Series here, and it's like, Hosmer's out there. Oh, my goodness, right? Lorenzo Cain, that's cool. Cain's there. And now it's Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, and it's sort of the epicenter of the NFL and the pop culture vibes. They are following Travis Kelce's plane to Sydney, Australia.
Yep.
Not Travis Kelce with Taylor Swift.
No.
They were specific. The most tracked plane in the last 2 days in the entire world was Travis Kelce's private plane to Sydney. Did you see the Australian TV station?
It did.
Let's play that one while we're doing it. Good transition, by the way. Let's
Thank
play
you,
that
right
one.
there.
The Australian TV station. This is they got their helicopter flying over the top, and the plane lands, and they are thinking, okay, this is the plane that has Travis Kelce on it. So this is the conversation taking place with the individuals on this TV station talking about Travis Kelce, following Travis Kelce's plane landing in Sydney.
So you don't have to.
Oh, here we go.
Movement.
What's going on here? Come on, cameraman, go in there, please. Is that Trav?
That looks like it could be him.
Oh, that could be.
that
That could be
big fella?
Travis.
Oh no, that
We've
looks
got a
like it could be
couple-
Travis.
That
Two
actually,
Travis.
no, I
Could
think
all
that's
be
Travis.
He's brought his
I
brother.
feel like
Is that his brother in tow?
possibly.
Brought a mate.
That looks
Why
like
The
Travis,
sport,
the second one.
He's got the sporty attire on, so you know.
Definitely
it's in
not an
keeping.
IT crowd, so I'm feeling even more confident now that this is Travis Kelce.
I'm very, very excited.
His backwards cap and his sporting athleisure
Yes.
gear, I would say we are onto the right person here.
And as Carl was saying this morning, it's quite quick, isn't it, when you're on a private jet? You're just sort of taken away, whisked away. You don't have
Say
to
that
wait
with
in any lines. It's
some
quite an
degree of
easy.
knowledge. Ruth.
Well, not me personally.
No, as
you
Carl
would have
said,
some
this
experience.
is not a Jetstar experience. With all respect to our friends at Jetstar.
So only two
Lovely
people have
friends.
climbed out. It looks like it's Travis and his brother, we think. We're obviously not certain because we're looking at this from quite a distance. We'll firm up those details for you shortly. But it appears as though,
Yes.
as Dickie said, Travis Kelce has made yet another touchdown in Sydney this morning.
There's so much about that I love, by the way.
I have to issue a correction. I heard a different Australian TV show talk
No
about Travis
kidding?
Kelce. Dead serious. I saw a different 15-second clip of them also not being sure which one was Travis Kelce, but it wasn't that one.
First of all, you got a guy named Dickie, which I absolutely love. Anybody named Dickie is great. Like Dickie said, touchdown! Travis Kelce has hit another home run. That's right.
Yeah, they got the sport right.
They absolutely did.
Give Dickie that credit.
Absolutely. Dickie was right.
Good job, Dickie.
And Dickie nailed it. And you've got the different parts of that. Is that his brother in tow? He's got his brother. No, it's not his brother or a tow. Neither of them. This is definitely not an IT crowd, so I think we're on the right path. Definitely not an IT crowd getting off the private plane, because a lot of IT people, maybe you're heading from Silicon Valley over to Australia, Sydney, down under. And then the lady calling it, I think we're on the right track because he's got his sporting athleisure on.
Got his cap backwards cap.
Cap backwards and his sporting athleisure. I want to start calling like the jumpsuits a sporting athleisure.
Yeah, I think it's great.
It's a nice day outside, and and I'm not going to work today. I'm going to rock that sporting athleisure today.
Sporting is a very European, in
Yeah.
this case Australian. Again, sporting Kansas City took a long time for us to get used to. We got to get sporting athleisure into the lexicon. This is important.
Also, showing you the difficulties of seeing who people are from above.
Yes.
The first person to get off the plane they thought was then Travis Kelce's brother. And then the second one with the backwards cap and the sporting athleisure, okay, this is Travis Kelce. Both of them wrong. The first one was actually Travis Kelce.
Was it really? I was going to admit that watching the video, the first guy walked out, I was like, that could be Travis Kelce.
The first guy that walked out, I thought, that's not Travis Kelce. That guy seems a little bit too husky. And then the second one that walked in, I'm like, okay, there's Kelce.
That's kinda what I was thinking,
backwards
too.
cap. No, the first one was Travis. The second one was Rob Travis,
Okay.
his best friend,
Okay.
former Kansas City Chief.
No relation.
No relation, because his last name is Travis, and Travis's. It would be the
Pun
it would
name
be
game,
pun
here
name
we
game.
go.
Rob Travis Kelce. That's what it would be. So they got both, and I don't blame them. I would have thought the second one was Travis Kelce. I mean, they sort of look alike. And from
Ross Travis, right?
Ross Travis, Rob.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
Ross.
Ross
You were
Travis,
absolutely
right,
right.
okay.
It's Ross Travis. All of the Rosses.
I didn't
Justin
know-
Ross, John Ross, Ross Travis, Ross Geller,
I missed
Ross Dellinger.
a whole thing of their relationship because I saw somebody tweet like, "Oh, that's Ross," and I was like,
Justin.
"Ross?
John?
Who's Ross? Who's Ross?" I remember Ross Travis.
I think Justin looks different. I can't put my finger on what it is. I'll figure it out later.
Amazing.
I'm not sure. But he does sort of look like Travis.
From
1,000 feet.
1,000 feet up, yeah.
I don't know how high helicopters hover. When,
With the hat
when
and the
there's a
sporting
plane.
athleisure and being built like an NFL tight end and having a beard.
How high they hover on an airstrip.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a good point.
Not sure.
From, let's say, pretty far up.
Air traffic control. You can zoom in the camera, too. So you can be pretty far up and then zoom in the camera. But I'm with them. The first one that got off, I'm like, I don't know who that is. Is that? Did he bring Jason with him? Is Kylie okay with Jason just jet setting down under for 5 or 6 days and leaving her and the kid? She didn't want to go to Australia for a few days. Like, that would seem odd, but like looks like a brother in tow, which is Australian for maybe his brother's with him. I'm not sure. But it is not his brother. Jason Kelce, I'm assuming, is back in Philadelphia with his family. It is Ross Travis, the former tight end of the Kansas City Chiefs and who's bounced around a number of different places, and one of Travis's best friends and running mate, apparently. And down there, mate is
running mate.
What they would call him. But the first person that got out was Travis. I thought it was closer to being Jason than it was Travis. And the second person gets out, looks much more fit, has the backwards cap. I'm like, all right, that is Travis. That's Travis Kelce.
I saw a video that Jason Kelce tweeted out of him running a 5K. I think it was for it was something about autism fundraising or whatever, which the Eagles are involved in. So I have to imagine it was all connected there. But it was him. I would not say running, and he also said that running would have been a relatively a generous way of describing what he did. For him, that's an NFL athlete running a 5K and being hurt by the end of it. It's been a real party week for both of them. It seems like. I mean, Jason may be en route to retirement, but either way, it's all different. It's incredible.
There's tons of pictures now of them at the zoo together.
So good.
The Sydney Zoo. Not Ross Travis and Travis Kelce and Taylor
He's probably
Swift.
there, I'd imagine.
He might be there. I was looking for him in the different pictures. Maybe he did. Maybe he's like, you know what? I'll let you and your girl do the zoo thing today. Although, hell yeah, I want to go to the Australian zoo.
Hey, you guys can. You know what?
Go to the Sydney Zoo. Yes,
it's a big zoo. You guys can have your alone time. I'm gonna go try to touch a kangaroo.
Also, do they rent out the whole zoo?
I guess you have to.
Because I think Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce walking around the zoo would seem like that would attract a crowd. And even if you've got security,
like
do you
halo of security?
Like, do you have enough security to be able to where they can just simply enjoy themselves while knowing, like, cameras and people would be taking pictures of them?
Yeah.
I've only seen pictures of like above. I haven't seen pictures of like people like with a selfie of like, oh, look, it's Taylor and Travis. I'm assuming they rented out the entire zoo.
I think you probably
including
have to.
animals. It was just empty. No animals,
there
nothing.
Was
they just walked around, jumped in cages.
Imagine the animals trying to get a picture with Taylor and Travis. I mean, come on.
A kangaroo running back. Taylor Swift just pet me.
Which is good, because if she didn't, I was going to use my horrific claws and giant kicking power. Kangaroos are crazy, guys.
If that zoo was open to the public, you'd see a lot more security in tow.
I mean, right. I guess that's true.
In tow.
It would have to be. It would have to be.
That's right, mate.
A perfect. I'm saying like a Red Rover style line of security, just in a circle around them, just a full on halo. It's like, all right, so the Africa section of the zoo closed right now. You can go to these other ones.
They move everybody out, and then they allow them to come in.
Clear out, bring them in, clear them out. I don't know. I imagine the Sydney Zoo is harder to rent out than the Kansas City Zoo would be, and the Kansas City Zoo is pretty big.
Seems to be, yeah. There would be a lot more people in sporting athleisure.
I would think so.
Out there,
lots
just
of
randomly.
sporting athleisure.
I saw one picture where it was from a pretty decent distance, but it was Travis and Taylor, and they were looking at some sort of marsupial, I'm not sure, animal of some degree. But there was a guy that was probably 15 feet behind Taylor Swift that was holding her purse.
So good,
It's like, she's got a guy to hold her purse. Now, Travis Kelce was holding a water bottle. And why can't there be somebody near him to hold his water bottle for him?
No offense to Taylor Swift, but Travis Kelce's hands are more valuable than Taylor Swift's.
Right.
I mean,
her shoulder with the purse. And by the way, the purse didn't look all that big.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like her shoulders would be fine. She can hold a microphone and
she
things
can wear
like that.
a guitar.
100%. Yeah. Maybe that's why she's like, I got guitars to wear during
that's true.
the
I'm
show.
so
I don't need to
guitars.
be. I don't need to be wearing this, holding this purse on my shoulder. So I got my bag man. You know. There's a lot of bagmen around college football now, but now she's got a bagman.
I'm just saying the only two things Travis Kelce should be holding are a football and her. That's the list. Don't make him hold anything else.
Hands. Holding her hand, not holding.
Yeah.
He should be holding her. Is he?
Well,
like,
yeah,
carrying
I'm
around
saying
her,
if they
like,
want to, like a loving embrace or whatever.
He's going to carry her across.
He could definitely carry her throughout the Sydney Zoo if he wanted. I'm sure. I don't know. I'm just saying there's two things he should be focused on right now. This relationship and carrying footballs. If he was carrying a football at the Sydney Zoo, that's even better.
I thought you were going to say this relationship and kangaroos.
There were some
only
great
two things
tweets
he should be caring about right now.
I think it was Roger Sherman that was tweeting that explaining marsupial facts to Travis Kelce has to be one of the greatest joys of all time. Like imagine being the person to break the news to Travis Kelce that the Tasmanian devil is a real animal. What? A Looney Tune? It's got to be an incredible, incredible moment.
Hold on, Tom and Jerry real?
I mean,
we got a play named after Tom and Jerry. You're telling me Tasmanian Devil's real? Yes. Yosemite Sam?
The voices again on this show today we've done some weird impressions.
Hold on.
You're telling me?
Hold on.
Hey, I'm Travis Kelce. You're telling me Tom and Jerry real?
Tom and Jerry's real. This whole time. Tasmanian Devil's real. Where's Tasmania then? Huh? And are there devils? You're telling me if there's a devil,
what about
God?
What about Garfield?
What about Webster? Travis, that's a real person. I'm just saying. Just didn't know. A lot of CGI these days. I do enjoy going to the zoo and reading facts about animals that 10 minutes later I've totally forgotten. But at the time, I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I'm going to remember that.
You get to learn it again like 2 months later, and it's like, wow, that's fascinating. I know that all the time.
And then 10 minutes later, I'm like, oh, I forgot that. Oh, that's awesome, man. I should probably say that on the air one time. I've already forgotten what it was.
Yeah,
I don't remember what it was about. Was it a muskrat?
We got to move mentally pretty quickly from one thing to the other. I think that's hurt our retention abilities.
I'm trying to keep my son from climbing into the gorilla cage. It's a lot of stuff going on. My daughter's working on her arm throwing rocks at the rhinos.
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
Just trying to keep my son from jumping into the hippo's mouth. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you're worried about while you're learning about, oh, my God, this hippo's mouth, it crushed a car. They just did that. It was a display they put over there.
What?
No, they didn't do that.
Okay, that sounded amazing. I was hoping I could at least get some footage of that.
It could crush a car, right? The hippo's mouth?
It
crushes
not
human
long
bones.
ways, I guess, but like in the middle, could crush like a Fiat.
A smaller, like a car that Jaylen Brown would be able to jump over.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Aaron Gordon jumped over the Kia. It'd be a car Jaylen Brown would jump over for an NBA dunk competition.
You want to fix the dunk contest? Jump over a hippo.
Well, there's one thing I don't think has affected Travis Kelce, and that might be low testosterone. I don't know that he's had to worry about that. But if you're out there and you're feeling sluggish, you've got low energy, don't feel the same pep as you did maybe when you were in your 20s and 30s, sleep patterns may be off, brain fog setting in at different points in the day, lower libido, not seeing gains in the weight room, and then of course, seeing gains in the waist area, all of those symptoms could be linked to low testosterone. Heartland Men's Health can likely help you with those symptoms. Guys, you can start losing, and you will start losing, actually, your testosterone as you age. It's part of the natural aging process. Year over year in your 30s and beyond, your body is producing less and less. I went to Heartland Men's Health because I didn't feel the same way that I used to. I do.
shirt off on camera.
Yeah, right.
Which so I feel like he's in a pretty good spot. Yeah, Dion had something going on there, like you were just alluding to, and again he's 56.
Yeah.
To Chad Johnson's 46.
Yeah. So we're going to play some Sports or Leisure at 1 o'clock. Have you heard the clip of Ichiro Suzuki talking about? You've never heard it. Okay.
I saw this. Oh. No, I think I have. I've heard it. Boy, but not. This is in that range. If I learned this, then I can't remember what it is.
So
what is it?
This has been a widely known, at least by a lot of people, of Ichiro Suzuki and his favorite American saying. But this popped across my timeline last night.
Okay.
And I thought, you know what? I've never actually heard him say it.
Okay.
I've just heard people say what he said.
Fabulous.
But I've never actually heard him say it. So I'm like, you know what? Before we play some Sports or Leisure, as we close out this hour, I wanted to hear Ichiro Suzuki being interviewed by Bob Costas, and this is where the saying that Ichiro had about Kansas City, this is where it came from. Listen to this conversation, Bob Costas and Ichiro
What is your
Suzuki.
favorite American expression?
August in Kansas City, it's hotter than two rats in a fucking wolf sock. That's my favorite. I have a bad teammate.
I want to know who the teammate is, by the way. But August in Kansas City is hotter than two rats in a bleeping old sock. Now, I've heard it, the saying as August in Kansas City is hotter than two rats bleeping in an old sock.
That makes sense.
And maybe that's what he was going for. But I'd never heard Ichiro actually say it.
This is a real killing blow in Mick's argument about would you rather have it be too hot or too cold. Because no one's ever said it's so cold in January in Kansas City, it's like two cold animals porking.
That would warm it up, though.
I guess that's true. I don't know. There's not a comparable inverse to that.
Also, is the old sock, is it used? Is it musty? You know what I mean? Like the old sweaty sock?
Baseball
right?
sock, probably. Think about how insulated those are.
And an old baseball sock in August and two rats.
I'm glad it's not August.
I'm glad I'm not in an old sock with a couple rats.
I thought that way without saying.
Just in the studio with a couple of rats.
Hey.
Sports or Leisure next.
I did think about trying to weave in some quick trip trivia in here. We'll see. That might be next week's little wrinkle. But we have royally relevant things that may have something to do with some form or turn of phrase involving royalty, but I can't guarantee that it would be the sports royals. That'd be weird on the leisure side. We also have What Could It IMDb and a little more of What Could It IMDb LV of movies based in Las Vegas, holdovers from the Super Bowl. And then, of course, we got some fresh pun name games and some fresh commonly misspelled word spelling bee words for you to spell. They're getting harder, though, at this point in the game, so choose wisely.
Less common?
Less common and less freebies, as I realize maybe I'm just not that good at spelling. It's been a big takeaway for me in that category of sports or leisure.
I'm a great speller, but these are certain words that I have trouble with.
That's just,
Nobody else has trouble with these words.
Yeah, so that might be on me, but
the annual. That's a tough one. Annual. Got it.
We're gonna get some of these.
I knew it started with an S eventually. I'm ready to go. Josh, you ready to play?
I am so ready to go. Kyle, are you ready to go?
All right, he's giving the Arsenio Hall who.
But audio-wise, that was even less enthusiasm than Shane or Beers or Dylan. So, Kyle, you're on a good track, my friend.
There you go. All right, 913-381-0810. We head to the phone lines, and we start off with Sean leading us off here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, a little sports or leisure. Sean, which side you start with, bud?
Let's go with, I guess let's do Chiefs Super Bowl.
Chiefs Super Bowl for you. Okay. Chiefs have won 3 Super Bowls. True or false? That's true. Well done. Nice job. Nope, false. They've won 4. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Nope. Patrick Mahomes, in his 3 Super Bowl wins, has thrown 3 touchdown passes in the fourth quarter or overtime to take a lead. Who did he throw them to? The 3 touchdown passes in the Super Bowls, in 3 Super Bowls, to take a lead in the fourth quarter or overtime.
I need all 3 of them?
You need all 3 of them.
Okay, I know the first one is obvious, is McCole Hardman.
That is one. Well done.
And then I believe the one last year was, which one was the second one? Take a lead.
I'm so bad at these. I don't
Are you?
know if I am.
This isn't spelling, Josh. You don't have to spell the name.
It was either Kadarius Toney or Sky Moore.
You're right. It was one of those two.
I can't remember which one it was. But yeah. I think Kadarius Toney was the second one, right? Is that right?
I don't know. What's your answer for that one?
That's my guess.
All right, Kadarius Toney is correct, but he was the first one. But the second one put him up by 8. Tony's put him up by 1.
God,
but you're right anyway.
That would have gotten me. I was thinking.
But you're right anyway.
Sky was the second one.
Sky was the second one, but Sky extended the lead.
Okay.
Kadarius Toney
All
gave
right.
him the lead. And the third one.
Now we need the one from Super Bowl 54.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been because Damian Williams ran in the last one.
Mm-hmm.
What was the past one? Who was that to?
Who was that to? Josh, do you remember that one?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Because there were 2 touchdown passes in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Shoot. I'm drawing a blank. Was it? It wasn't Kelsey. Kelsey? Maybe it was Kelsey. I'll guess Travis Kelsey.
Sean, it was not Travis Kelce. Man, you got all the way there, too.
Much like McCole Hardman earlier in the Super Bowl, you pretty much got it to within like the 3-yard line, and then somebody else is going to have to come try to make that happen now.
Sean, thank you for playing, man. I appreciate it. You've put somebody on the goal line for that particular question, and we'll see if somebody can get it over the goal line.
Or fumble it.
They could fumble it through the. Well, see why you got to bring up old stuff.
It's all good. It's all right. We know how this ends. It ends with the celebration. We're
And
okay.
you know what? And Kelsey still owes him a car.
Yeah, there you go.
So he gets the super. He gets
as soon as he gets back from the zoo.
That's right. Is he getting an Australian car?
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think
sure.
he gets a Jeep.
He's getting a Subaru Outback.
Yeah, ooh, there it is. There it is.
Let's go to Charles next up on Sports Radio 810. Charles, sports or leisure, what side do you want to start with?
Let's do some leisure.
What category do you like?
Let's do that spelling bee.
Let's do that spelling bee. You're bringing a real confidence to this, so go ahead and knock off sacrilegious.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Commonly.
It's not a spelling bee word. It's on a list of common. I don't know.
Oof.
Sacrilegious. SACRILEGIOUS.
Your confidence
Nice
was very
job.
well earned. That's absolutely correct.
Nice job. Well done.
Oh, boy.
All right, on to the sports side, Charles. We got Chiefs Super Bowl. We've got postseason / Super Bowl in the NFL, and we've got college basketball.
Let's try college basketball.
Okay, so are you a KU fan by any chance, or just like in general, or one of the?
In general, definitely not KU.
Okay, very good. Then let's go with because there's a couple of KU specific ones in here, so I'll just go with this one. Name 3 of the 7 players between the 3 local schools to score at least 2,000 points. Ooh. Now, a lot of this category was based off Max Asmus and his 3,000 points that he surpassed this week. Not in one game. That would be a record.
That would be a lot.
But there are 7 local players of the 3 local schools. There are 7 players of the 3 local schools that have scored at least 2,000 points.
In their college career?
In the college career. That's right. College career.
3 of 7 have scored 3,000 or more.
2,000 or more. 2,000 or more. Nobody got to 3,000 of the local schools.
Oh, wow. This is all time, right?
All time. That's right.
I
might just sit here and name the funniest names I can think of as this goes on. Carlton Bragg.
Close.
Sheck Diallo.
Not as close.
Perry Ellis.
He played 10 years.
That's what I was thinking. Actually, I said that out loud. Is that an answer? I hope that's not an answer.
He averaged 5 points.
If
per
that's
game
a free
for
answer,
Perry
I
Ellis.
don't know it. So
it's not. It is.
Okay.
By the way, it is not. Perry
Thank God.
Ellis.
Thank God.
These are all-time great players.
42 years of eligibility. He's like the Frank Gore of college basketball. I thought there was a chance.
2,000 points is difficult because there's only been 7 of them all time at the local schools. And by the way, that's when players were playing 4 years.
That makes sense.
I mean, so
makes a lot of sense.
Let's go with Danny Manning.
Danny Manning is one of them. That is correct. Well done.
Is there one from each school by chance?
There is at least one from each school.
One from each
There's
school.
a couple at all 3 of the schools.
Each school has at least 2? Is that
Each
what you
school
want to
has
give that away?
Yes,
Interesting.
each school has at least 2.
Which means that no school has more than 3 because there's only 7.
You are good at math.
How about that? Not so good at spelling, but not bad at math.
Not bad at it.
In very small sample sizes.
That's right.
I'm going to get a drink.
It's baseball season. You better be ready to drink, man.
Yeah, baseball season means it's time for me to start drinking, Jason. I know.
It means a lot of different things.
I'm thinking of a K-State Wildcat.
He would be a more recent player. I'll give you that hint.
Jacob Pullen.
Pullen. There you go. He's actually the all-time leader at K-State. So you need one more out of the other 5 players at K-State, KU, and Mizzou to get to 2,000 points. Josh, you got any more funny names?
Yeah, but they're different. Did Embiid get there in 1 year? Did he get there? Did Wiggins get there in a year?
Would you? Why are you giving away 2? No,
sorry,
neither of them.
I'm sorry.
No.
Okay,
there are no one and dones on this. There are 4-year players. All
there's
over
a
the
couple
place.
of weird ones that I'm afraid to say.
There's another player from K-State that's a free agent wide receiver. So I mean that's weird. But yeah.
Isn't there a couple from Missouri?
There are 2 from Mizzou. That's right.
And
Keon Dooling is not one of them. Unfortunately.
It's not Bobby Scipio, is it?
It is also not Bobby Scipio. No, he only got to 500 points scored.
500 points.
Yeah. Only got to 500 points.
Doug Smith, I think.
Doug Smith is correct.
There we go.
Doug Smith. The other 4.
I'm gonna. Can I shoot?
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to.
Derek Chivas, maybe?
He's the all-time leading scorer at Mizzou. So you got both the Mizzou ones.
Jeff Whiffy.
The kid recently from Kansas State that they went to the Final Four. I can't remember his name.
Mike Evans is the other K-Stater.
He probably didn't do it because he was only there for a year or two, I think.
Nope, not Mike Evans, the wide receiver at Tampa Bay, also K-State Wildcat, got 2,000 points. And there are two other KU Jayhawks.
I have no other guesses. I'm blank on the other ones.
The other two KU Jayhawks, Nick Collison and Rafe LaFrance. So there you go. Those are the 7 players, but you got 3 of them.
There you go.
So there you go. And
nothing sacrilegious about that.
If you would have not got that right, that'd have been sacrilegious to not remember at least 3 of those guys that did that.
Definitely not sacrilegious on that one.
Charles, well done. We'll put you on hold to get your information. Congratulations.
Hey, super duper.
Love it. 913-381-810 is the phone number.
Did I say Cole Aldridge?
You didn't, and you would have been incorrect had you said Cole Aldridge. Avery, next up on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Avery, sports or leisure, what side do you want to start with?
I think it's traditionally a wool sock that the Rats are hanging out in.
Oh, that makes sense.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Also, Hunter Dickinson is over 2,000 points now. I know most of that was at Michigan.
Yeah, that's at Michigan, though. But yeah, the entire career. Back when transferring wasn't as popular.
Yeah, nobody ever transferred before 5 years ago.
Exactly.
Didn't happen.
You had to sit out 4 years, I believe, used to be the old rule. If you want to leave here, you actually have to give up your firstborn child and your left pinky finger. I'm left-handed. Fine, your right one. Then that's fine. I don't care. But if you're going to transfer from here, damn it, this is the NCAA. You better be grateful that we even give you some credit hours.
You guys got that Damian Williams question out there?
God dang it,
we
man.
do.
I'm going to make you do calculus on the leisure side today.
We do. Patrick Mahomes has thrown 3 touchdown passes to take the lead in the fourth quarter or overtime in Super Bowl wins in the 3. Who did he throw to? McCole Hardman and Kadarius Toney were guessed earlier. Travis Kelce was wrong. What say you, Avery? Who's the other player for Mahomes to throw a touchdown pass that took the lead?
I would say Damian Williams.
Damian Williams
is really good to say that because that Sean guy takes forever.
That's Damian Williams is correct. Very famous one where it was reviewed, and I took the corner of the Assad that's still in my basement of him putting the ball over the pylon. So there you go. That is correct. On to leisure with Josh.
What category would you like?
Well, let's try the pun name game.
All right, let's try the pun name game. This much maligned Chiefs wide receiver got several chances to make an impact this year before riding the bench, likely due to the fact that the Chiefs were lacking a type of quality that was summarized by the title of one of the most popular racing video game franchises of all time.
Shut up.
All right. I like it when Jason gets them. I like when Jason gets them live.
Mick isn't going to like this one, is he?
Oh, I think he should.
Okay.
I feel good about this.
All right.
A popular racing game?
Uh-huh. I think arguably the most popular racing game franchise of all time. But certainly an iconic, slightly earlier one.
Is the first part you're going for Kadarius Toney? I guess you can't tell me that.
Yeah, do you want half the answer for you, or do you want me to give you the whole thing?
Whole answer or not? I mean, the previous caller gave you 2/3 of the answer you got on sports. Now you need 1/2.
You're a real yak merchant of sports or leisure quarterbacks.
Need 5
here.
answers, and he wants 4 of them given to him.
How much help does he need? Win a real ring.
Most popular
Win a real gift card.
Feigning injuries like your Patrick Mahomes. How much help do you need, Patrick?
How much help do you need?
Patrick Vree. It's like the Patrick Mahomes of sports or leisure.
It's like Mario Kart's not right.
I'll read you the full question one more time here, and then so you can stall. This much maligned Chiefs wide receiver got several chances to make an impact this year before riding the bench, likely due to the fact that the Chiefs were lacking a type of quality that was summarized by the title of one of the most popular racing video game franchises of all time.
Checking my text to see if Mick Schaefer has texted in.
I think this one passes the Mick test.
I actually think it does too.
L'Jarius Sneed for speed is wrong.
Yeah, sure is.
The first half doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because I don't think he played receiver.
Toney, if there's a thing that started with one, wait, that quality read that second half again. Is it actually the name of the racing thing?
Likely due to the fact that the Chiefs were lacking a type of quality that was summarized by the title of one of the most popular racing video game franchises of all time.
It's a very well-worded question, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Because it does incorporate a lot of the issues.
When I hear the answer to it, I'll be like, "Oh, you're so clever." But right now, my brain doesn't make any sense.
Your brain typically always works.
Yeah, I feel like you're usually kind of on this. I feel like you've sniffed around where you need to be, but I'm going to need you to...
sniffed other things, and now the brain's going
I'm going to need you to get out of that wool sock and start
That's right.
start putting the pieces together.
Start getting hotter.
There's a lot of smells going on in this wool sock right now. Kadarius Toe Need for Speed.
There it is.
Yes, there it is.
Kadarius Toe Need for Speed.
You got Sneed for Speed. You got Legarius Sneed for Speed, and I'm like, hey, you not get Toe Need for Speed.
It's right there for you.
Because at first I'm like Tony and the Need. I don't know. Mick may disagree with that. With the last name needing to be Legarius Sneed for Speed.
Scoops up right there.
Something start with one because Tony, no, that doesn't even have one because the Y. Oh man,
Kadarius Tony Gran Torino. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. All right, Avery, we'll put you on hold. Get your information. Congratulations. Well done.
I love Lebo.
Not all wins are easy, but they're all wins.
That's right.
Wins are wins.
Man, I can't believe it. Legarius Sneed for Speed? No, that's not it. Kadarius Tony? I don't know. It feels like it's going to be easy. It's right there. It is. It actually
Sky Mario Kart? Whoa, hey, Sky Mario Kart.
Oh, Mick would drive here to punch you.
Yeah, that was not as good, but I tell you what, I'm gonna write down honorable mention. Sky Mario Kart might have. It would have applied. Well, it wouldn't have been the trait the Chiefs needed, but I like Sky Mario Kart.
Would you have accepted it if he said Sky Mario Kart?
I think so, just from the way that I felt when I said it out loud made me feel like I wanted to give myself a gift card.
Go take one.
I feel like I earned it.
Whatever. Can I borrow the one that you take? Can I borrow it for our lunch?
Yeah, sure. That's fine.
Great.
You've got 3 or 4 of them, I think.
Let's bring in Logan to the game here. Sports or leisure, Logan? What side do you want to start with?
I'll start on sports, but Josh just completely outed himself as being a child of the 90s with Need for Speed there, man. That's
damn right.
Need more of those games.
We do.
I think he sort of outs himself by all the movies he's never seen.
It's mostly the movies and the video games and the culture and
in his age.
Yeah, he was either Gran Turismo, Forza, or Need for Speed, and the 90s kids are the Need for Speed kids.
That's exactly right, yes. Right. That is true.
Let me do Chiefs Super Bowl.
Chiefs Super Bowl, all right. Okay. In the 2 Super Bowls between the Chiefs and the 49ers, oh, man. I don't know that I want to use this one because I feel like no, I'm going to use a different one.
Whoa.
Sorry, Logan, just because this almost closely ties in with the one we just did.
Okay.
So I can't do it.
Sometimes you got to make those adjustments on the fly.
Well, you could. It's like, I don't know that you can't. I mean, it's certainly possible. Nothing's holding you back from doing that. It's not against the law. The 2022 draft class, a big reason why the Chiefs have won back-to-back Super Bowls. There are 2 players from that draft class to record at least a half a sack in the Super Bowl. Who are the 2 players with at least a half a sack in the Super Bowl from the 2022 draft class?
George Karlaftis?
He is one. He got it this year.
Oh, man.
It's a difficult one. I know.
My instinct was Bolton there for a second, but I was like, no, it's 22. He was before that.
Yeah, he was 21. But the sack, I will tell you, the sack did come in 22.
Came in 22
against the Eagles.
I got out.
You want to throw a dart to somebody?
Name somebody in the draft
Somebody
class.
played defense from that draft class that played against the Eagles at least a snap. Not Juju.
Was it was it defensive lineman or was it a? You know what? God. No, I got nothing.
There aren't that many options. Just pick one of the options.
Any defensive player from 22.
I can't think of Chiefs draft class for 22.
It's with Karlaftis.
Anybody? So Karlaftis was drafted 31?
31. There was another first rounder. There was a third rounder. There was a second rounder. There was a fourth rounder. Seventh rounders.
No, that was.
You got at least 2 DBs. Now, I don't actually. Now I'm.
Was it? It was not Sky Moore. I'll tell you that much.
Okay, that's good.
Well, hey, yeah. Yeah,
And it was not Darian Kennard.
Yeah. Philadelphia Eagle Darian Kennard, by the way.
It was not Pacheco.
It was not Pacheco.
So we are eliminating
They
players.
drafted a lot of DBs.
Yeah, doesn't mean it's a DB.
It might not be a DB.
Yeah, he may be sitting down the wrong path.
Oh gosh, I know this, and my mind is just blank here.
It happens, man. At 10 o'clock, minds go blank. Believe me.
I know.
Right until 2 o'clock. You get off there, I'm like, oh, that's right. That's the name I was thinking of. There it is.
I really don't have it, man. I'm sorry.
Logan, thank you for playing, man. I appreciate it. Earlier in the show, I said, Aaron Gordon jumped over the Kia.
Yeah, sure.
But Blake Griffin jumped over the Kia.
Yeah.
Because I'm dumb.
Tom Brady and Travis Kelce, greatest quarterback tight end duo of all time.
No, it's not.
Oh.
Nobody would say that.
Oh, okay.
Because they didn't ever play together.
That's weird. But you said that yesterday.
What?
Oh.
Oh. Whatever.
I'm nitpicking.
You can't prove it.
No, there's no evidence of that.
No evidence.
No evidence
We
whatsoever.
don't record anything around here.
Thank God.
There's no
too.
evidence
Can you
of me
imagine
saying that.
people
at
hearing
all.
the things we say? Holy cow.
My goodness. And then going to break going, hold on, did I not say Mahomes? Did I say, cause they can't be the greatest quarterback receiver duo ever because they didn't play together. Anyway, let's go to Matt next up on Sports Radio 810. Sports or leisure, Matt, what side do you want to start with?
I will try that sack question.
Okay, the player that was in the 2022 draft class that did record a sack against the Eagles. Who is it?
I think it was Leo Chanel.
Nice job. It was
There
Leo
you
Chanel.
go.
Leo Chanel. One of those odd ones where he
That
was
is-
the nearest
I
to
forgot
Jalen
about
Hurts when he
that.
ran out of
Yep,
bounds.
Yep.
So it was a little bit difficult. There was a layup with Karlaftis getting one this year in the Super Bowl against the 49ers. So nice job. It was Leo Chanel. I thought for sure he was just going to go McDuffie.
That's what I was thinking.
At
He's just stab in the general direction
right,
of Trent McDuffie. And
but not McDuffie, not Cook, not Williams, not Watson, not Nazi, none of the above. Not Kennard. It was Leo Chanel. It is leisure to Josh for Matt.
Do you know what category you'd like, Matt?
Let's go Vegas.
Let's go. I like the Vegas IMDb LV. I don't have pure Vegas trivia, but I do have those again. Okay. Were you listening last week or a couple weeks ago?
Were you listening on
Don't worry about
January 7th?
Don't worry about it. Three buddies jet to Thailand for Stu's wedding. Stu's plan for a subdued pre-wedding brunch, however, goes seriously awry.
That'll be The Hangover Part 2.
Yes, it
Nice
would.
job.
I was very nervous before you finished the number.
Nice job.
But all three Hangover movies have now been guessed and used, and no more hangovers, everybody.
And
You're
you used
welcome.
them in a different order,
I went 1-3-2, you know,
1-3-2.
just to be a dingus about it, and it worked.
No, a dingo.
Being a dingo about it down under.
See, which is what the Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are visiting.
Blimey.
Not right now, probably.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
know.
think the zoo is open right now in Australia. Matt, Johnny's Tavern is going to be open for you with $25 heading your way. We'll put you on hold, get your information. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Absolutely. 913-381-1010. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue playing some Sports or Leisure presented by Johnny's Tavern. More next.